What's up, everyone? Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining us.
I saw a tweet today about a seventh season of Fortnite being released. Didn't know that there were
Season.
six. Yeah, apparently it's a game that's being released in seasons.
Well, it's all the
How have I
same
not?
game. I think maybe the seasons are to do with like new updates that change. I don't play enough Fortnite.
I don't know.
Red Dead
Seriously,
Redemption 2 is winning almost
seriously
everything.
thought all these people were here. So did I. I got on the call and I was like, whoa, who's hanging out with us?
A bunch of wax figures. Remember when wax
You look a little
figures were a
different. Why do
thing?
you look so different?
I look different or not
Yeah,
different?
you look different.
What's different about me?
I'm looking at the. I don't know.
I
Maybe you
probably
just look younger.
I probably weigh a bit less now. Um, I'm
Like a little
older
bit.
and more haggard. Uh,
Headphones.
Headphones, sweatshirt.
How many apartments ago is this one?
Oh man, one, two, at least three ago, I think.
Yeah, it's always fun to keep track of everybody's changing backgrounds as time goes on.
Yeah,
We weren't always blessed with the blue and black wall, blue and black and blue wall.
it wasn't. I had to create that.
Oh, I remember when it was like two panels,
Yeah,
and then it grew to like six, and now it's the magnificent wall it is.
had to buy more. Weird lighting. Yeah, I actually. This is probably back in the day where, um, this apartment. I lived above this place that like blasted music all the time unnecessarily, and it would seep into the audio in every room except for this tiny room that I had, which was like a tiny little home gym that I had created. um, and so there's like a power rack in front of me, and the lighting was terrible. With just the overhead light, you couldn't even see me. So I had to bring in my like video production studio lights. And so they are currently sitting next to on either side of the, the power rack, and the room is just big enough for the rack
Mhm.
itself. Um, and so I've got those two lights, and then I'm sitting in a chair, and in front of me is like a tiny little table thing. Whoa, what was it? At first, when I first started, I was on like some books, my laptop. Um, I had like uh, a little white table thing that was adjustable in height, and it just had like one little leg, and I'd put my laptop on that and attach the microphone to that and put the cam. I think this might have
Save,
just been
save
my.
it, save it for your Taran show details.
Well, this is what we're doing. We're talking about you know what it was
We
like.
one of these streams will rewatch your audition video.
Oh God, we did this on Blab, which was
Yes.
a video platform. It was pretty nice. You could we would take callers at the end of the show and chat with them, um, and you could see all four people at once without having to screen grab and move everything around, which was nice.
The day Blab went down was one of the worst days.
It was truly a sad thing. Little known story is this is my
Yeah.
chat. Hey chat. Um, Little known story. The very first American Ninja Warrior podcast was recorded on Blab
Hmm.
for no reason. It was just that it was live on Blab, and like one person found us and was like, "Who are these people?" Because we didn't tell anyone about it. We were just recording it.
Oh, so it was live. That it's always live, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it was live and it was broadcasting just so we could grab the audio from it afterward.
Right, because that was the only way to do it.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, so we're here to go over this. This was the Happy Hour, which was hosted by Jordan Parhar, as you can see. Big Brother winner rankings, and this took place almost exactly 3 years ago, about 3 years and a month, after Big Brother 17. And we went down, we ranked all of the Big Brother US winners. And we're just going to revisit this and see what our thoughts were and, give some new opinions as we go by, I'm sure. Patocek just subscribed to Twitch Prime. Thank you. Welcome to the Robot Army. All right, so this time Matt is going to be watching a separate video.
Yeah,
and we're going to see how that goes.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So you tell me when I'm starting.
Did we put Eddie on there? I don't think we put Eddie on there. I don't remember ranking Eddie.
It's kind of rude if you didn't.
Is it though?
I don't know. Need some Long Island representation in the list. I don't think there is any otherwise.
All right, so I'm going to start playing the video. We're just going to talk over it, maybe occasionally pause as we go. And let me know how the audio is once it starts, because you never know.
All right,
here we go. Here is the Happy Hour 22 Big Brother winner rankings from 2015.
Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another edition of the Big Brother Happy Hour. My name is Jordan Parhar, and as always, I'm here to talk some Big Brother with you on robhasawebsite.com. Today, we're going to be doing a special podcast for you. It's going to be another long one. It's an off-season edition, and that means we're going to be talking about something that is very controversial, a topic that many people have wanted to hear about, and that is our rankings for all of the Big Brother USA winners of all time. And this is going to be quite the podcast. So I needed some help. I couldn't do this on my own. So once again,
I'm sorry. Can you pause yours for a second? I'm not at the right spot. All right. 41 seconds. Let me get there. Sorry, everybody. Bear with us for a second.
It's all right. Jordan's just talking about... He's just explaining what we're doing.
All right, maybe you could count me in since I can't see your screen at the same time.
All right, ready?
Well, 3, 2, 1, yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. The dream team. That's right. Brent, Alex, and Taran are all here today. They're joining me live on Blab. Guys, how are you doing?
Excellent. Nice to be here.
Well, Brent doesn't even have a mic.
Doing incredible. I've been waiting for this
Alex?
podcast.
Yeah, he does.
I've been preparing for it all week. I've been watching all the seasons at double speed to prepare. I've been doing research. I'm ready.
Does not surprise me.
Girl, get a life.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. This should be fun. Yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm pretty sure I rewatched.
All right, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really pumped, guys.
Did you rewatch
a few
every
different
season?
seasons?
Very
Not everyone.
controversial, I'm sure. We might set a
On double speed.
happy hour
Right.
record for most comments after a show with this one, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are really happy with some things and a lot of people that are really unhappy with a lot of things and how we rank this. So if you guys are not familiar with the Happy Hour, you haven't checked this show before, what I do is I podcast about additional Big Brother and Survivor content on robhasawebsite.com. We did a month ago, the four of us, a podcast talking about
It's weird.
Big Brother season
there's a
rankings
difference
and how we felt
I don't know what it
season
is.
ranked based on our own personal preference.
You got
and we came
this
up with
younger
a
glow
consensus
talking
rank
about
by
so many
averaging out
seasons of Big
the
Brother since
four
then. Just
ranks of
aged
ours,
you.
and we
Weighed
did.
me down.
We're doing a similar thing here today. So we've got all of the winners of Big Brother US, and we are ranking them
Just got
from
a little bit
1
of
to 16. We have omitted Eddie.
baby
McGee.
fat in the
Sorry,
cheeks,
Eddie,
maybe.
but your game was a lot different than the current iteration of Big Brother. So Eddie is not in this list. So we've
Eddie's not
got
on the
16
list.
winners. We've each ranked them 1 to 16.
16
We have different
winners.
ranks. Some are the same, some are different, and they averaged out to a consensus. It's going to be very exciting to see this thing. It's going to be a fun countdown, and I can't wait to get into this. So if you guys want to help support the show, if you could please tell people about this, retweet this afterwards, tell your friends, post this on the Big Brother subreddit, whatever you need to do. I don't know, but just get the word out here. That if you really want to help out the show, that really means a lot. And also, please subscribe to the podcast, robisawebsite.com/Rahappy-Hour. That's Happy Hour with an R at the front.
Remember Jordan?
Okay, guys. So before we jump into it, let me just make this
person.
clear to the people listening.
Me 3 years
so
ago?
we are ranking
not on these,
the winners,
not
1
on
to
these
16,
videos.
but we're not ranking them on their winning games per se. There's a difference between ranking the winners and their winning games. So we are ranking these people how we feel about them as players. So who we think are the best players, not ranking
Brent
them
was
in
still
terms of
a big
who
Coke
played
person.
the best individual game. So for me,
how
I did it
changed.
was I ranked them 1 to 16 based on how I think they would do if they were going to go into 100 random seasons playing against a random field of players each and every time.
This is actually very important.
They would win or do incredibly well. So that's what I would do. And also we did this without assuming too much. So for example, for me, when I was thinking about this, I didn't just assume that, hey, maybe on the 25th time that Big Baller plays, he automatically becomes a strategic mastermind and knows more than Dr. Will and Dan and Derrick combined. No, I can't really assume that just based on the tape and the footage we've seen. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do here, guys. Any questions before we get started? Brand, Alex,
I just think that we should repeat that maybe a few times throughout the podcast so people understand that we're not ranking best winning games. And also, just to be fair to us, well, 2 things. One, I was just kidding. Taran actually did take this very seriously, more seriously than maybe all of us put together. He really took his time with this. And 2, the thing that is important to me to note is that we're being asked to evaluate some people who have played more than once against some people who've played only once. And that is an inherently hard prospect to do. You have people like Derrick and Andy.
Since when is Brent
Steve,
this reasonable?
For instance, who have only played one time, and we're being
it's really
asked
weird
to
that he doesn't have a
evaluate
microphone.
It is.
Body of work against someone like Boogie, who has played 3 times, or Rachel, who's played 2 incredibly long games, or Dr. Will or Dan. So, cut us a little slack. That's what I'm saying. We all have our opinions, and it's a subjective process to begin with.
Yeah, I think, Jordan, you talked about it as a process where like somebody might play 100 times and how would they do that many times? I think another way you can look at it is if somebody puts a gun to your head and says, I'm casting a season of Big Brother with returning players, and you have to pick one former player to bet your life on in the game, who are you picking?
Wow, Brent's
you know what
so
I mean?
mellow.
So I think that's another way you can look at it. That's
noticeable.
Also kind of, I think for me, the biggest thing here is really, this is subjective, what we're doing, completely subjective. So what I try to do is objectify it, and we can go into, I think it'd be good to talk about our processes a little bit, how each of us kind of came to rank.
Gun to the head already. Wow.
But for me, I tried to kind of think about like, what is the criteria that makes a great Big Brother player, and then who exhibited that most consistently. So I really tried to, I kind of narrowed it down to three things that I saw as like the 3 most essential skills that a person can have. And then I just kind of like graded everybody 1 to 10. So I don't know what you guys did, if you guys were like as, matter of fact about it as I was.
I'm like wanting to interject, kind of like, but I'm wondering if I'm going to end up saying that myself 3 years ago.
Karen, how did you do your ranks? Is it similar to Alex, kind of like that?
No, because I don't see the world in black and white. I see
shades
of gray.
Yeah, not much change for you.
So how I look at it is, like Brent said, this is an incredibly difficult thing to do, to try and rank winners based on how they
took
would
it
do
so
in a game
seriously.
Big Brother is so based on luck.
You
and
still would today.
chance
It's not like anything's.
All sorts of
I would,
variables
but
that
I'd
are
have more
possible
fun
to
with it.
control for. And we have an incredibly limited data.
Like
set
this
to
was
work
this was
off
like
of.
my
We're
life's
talking
work.
About how would these players do if they played 100 times? We've seen most
brand
of them
new.
play
It was
once.
not that it's
And
not fun
in
anymore, but it was
any
like
scientific study. If you
but
know,
like
if you're going off of
I'd
one-
always wanted to
one
do
set-
this,
like one
and this was like my
example,
contribution to
it's
Big
gonna be
Brother.
laughed out of the room.
Yeah.
So
Like the
this
Big
is something
Brother.
that you've been doing on your own in your
anybody
bed
who
for
has
years.
the most amount
I'd
of
been
data I
wanting
have
to do
look
this
at
forever.
the firmer I believe in that particular ranking. So somebody who I've seen in a wide variety of situations, and I've seen how they can handle that, the more sure I am of how I rated them as a player. Somebody who has not seen a wide variety of situations is somebody who I'm not as sure about. And in general, I ranked in tiers. So I do have a numbered list of 1 to 16, but within that, I have groupings of people who I think are within the margin of error of each other. So they could easily be swapped out between each other, you know, from 8th to 6th or something.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So that's
I feel
generally
like I'm back in
how I
2012 or whatever year this
from
was. 15.
Yeah, I think the tiers thing is a really good idea, and
I think part of it too is that like before I was hosting things, I always saw it as like I was playing, I was a specific role. I was like the dry like strategy guy, so I didn't try to be as funny, I guess. I don't know.
We had a question from Josh Muskill 123.
I tried to like really play up that angle.
You guys average out the ranks like you did with the season rankings, and yeah, that's exactly what we did. So we ranked them 1 to 16, each of us, and we put them all together, and then just got a consensus average based off of that. So that's what we're going to go with, and that's how we're going to rank them today. And I should remind you guys, we are live here on Blab, so if you do want to leave us a question, you can do so by typing in Slack.
And I want to remind you that we're live here on Twitch, and if you want to leave a question, just drop it in the chat.
We're not going to take any calls today just because
we're not going to take any calls, unfortunately.
Blab continues to hate Brent, and Brent leaves, and then we have an open spot. But
please do not go to Blab's website right now. I don't know where it'll take you.
Yeah, fingers crossed. By the way I did it, I literally put everybody down on a piece of paper, and it was my gut instinct on, again, if these people are
can you move your mouse? I hate staring at the bottom bar.
Against random people who don't know who they are.
Much better.
Who am I putting my chips
I'm adjusting the volume.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I think it's different to say.
Like, you ever do that when you're watching like a TV show and you have the bar? Like, I don't want to watch.
Hold on, let me adjust the volume so people can hear you talk.
In the list who I think Jordan, for instance, is going to go far a lot, but is she going to win most of the time? Hell no. So I really think that there's something to be said for, I'm ranking people based on how I think they can win the game and in what manner they do it in, and not necessarily just their general, I placed in the top 5 of a lot of different games or something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Brent. And yes, it's who we think is going to win, not necessarily.
When was BB Can 3?
Go far
2000.
Some of these people
was it the same year?
It was the same year.
Again, this is something with Survivor. You see someone like Boston
only like
Rob,
a few months
right?
out of
people regard him as one of the greatest to ever play the game. Yet he's
his 22nd podcast.
Been one of the first ones out, or he's got
November 1st.
So
I guess he'd gotten out.
Like, so yeah, that's how we looked at it for the most
Yeah,
part.
like he'd been podcasting during the summer, during the season.
This is going to be a long podcast, and we're going to be here probably for 3 hours. Who knows how long this thing is going to go?
Pretty close.
So
I do want to
ready.
I do want to briefly say, because I didn't mention my process as far as how I evaluate a player.
Gotta make sure they know the process.
I mostly evaluate a player by looking at the combination of their natural ability to go far in the game.
The volume here.
No matter what the cast is, if they're seen as weak, they're probably going to go further. That's usually a general plus to a player. And then that combined with their ability to consistently maximize their chances of making it to the end and winning the game through their own work and not relying on luck. And I tend to favor people who are able to consistently do things proactively, as opposed to the people who are more naturally good at just getting there without having to do much.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it, Taran. And
I would say that's kind of changed for me, where especially as Big Brother's become more and more random, I really try to just look at it through what I see as the percentage. And if somebody who's naturally doing well, despite not actively working toward it, is going to have a higher % chance of winning than somebody who's actively working toward it, then I'm gonna call the natural player better.
Number 16 on the board, and this was somebody, we had a lot of differing opinions on various players, but for the most part, this player we all agreed on her being in last place. Alex Brent and myself, we had her at 16, so last place, and Taran had her at 15. So Taran had her one place higher than all of us. She won by a vote of 5-2. She was nominated 4 times in her season. She played twice. In season 11, she was nominated 4 times. She won HOH twice, Power Veto once. She returned in season 13. She finished in 4th place, was nominated 3 times, won HOH once, and that is the lovely Jordan Lloyd. Jordan Lloyd is in 16th place. She finishes with an average rank of 15.
I don't like this already. I'm glad I didn't look at the list.
Alex, tell us about.
I'm glad I'm getting
okay,
fresh,
so yeah,
that's,
again,
that
you know,
sucks.
I had kind of a
I think I had Rachel
I tried to
lower.
really kind of be
and that's
formulaic
it.
with my process. I kind of, you know, did pros and cons columns a little bit. And another thing I did, like I said, I really tried to figure out, like, what are the things that are most important in this
Speed
game.
this up if this
and
is.
really, you know, there was 3
I don't know if
things.
anyone
There's a
else
lot of
likes.
people that
so
are
as a result, then I kind of began
speed.
giving, you know, 3
Okay.
different grades to all these players.
It's up
And
to you.
I really did see kind of patterns emerge.
Let's
The
see
3
what,
things that I came up with, and obviously other people are going to say that there are
1-5
skills that are
goes.
more
How's-
important to
how's
winning Big
that?
Brother. This is just the 3 that I saw as
Let me know if this is too much.
most critical to me for, you know, deciding who I would, you know, back if I was playing.
Oh, wait,
this
I forgot, I'm not-
situation, right? So
We're
for
not on the
me,
same-
those were
You just messed it up.
I'm at 1341.
All right. I was like, wait, this isn't going well. Yeah. Are you gonna keep it on?
Well, I don't know. How was that? Let me know in the chat if that was all
was-
right.
Like it's not changing.
Because I feel like if it is all right, I feel like it would be ideal. Where's young Matt at the time? Says Mary.
I was watching this.
It was
I
good.
not
I'm hearing it was good.
participating.
Okay.
All right, then I'm going to.
Kind of weird.
Uh,
Keep it normal.
Yeah, I would keep it normal. There, I feel like I don't want to piss off all the
Speed it
people
up.
who are
Speed it up. All right.
anti-speed, because some people that are anti-speed are persistently anti-speed. Shout out Matt Gagan.
I don't
Right.
understand those people.
Me either.
You know how much time we'll
Um,
save? I don't want to do the math right now, but it's at least like a half hour, I think. All right.
Count me in.
1341. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
knowledge of the game and how to navigate the waters
Cool.
of it. Strategic implementation, which is how you actually use that knowledge, how you put it into practice, and then social adaptability, which is really
Like
just,
watching the
can you
Gilmore
play
Girls.
with sorority girls as well as you can play with dudes from inner Harlem, as well as you can play with, you know, farm boys, you know what I mean? Like, just the ability to play with any type of people. So to me, those are like the 3 key skills here. And with Jordan, you're looking at someone who, although she, you know, got an above average rating for me in the social department, this is someone who's getting very, very poor ratings in the other 2 areas. And I think that's something we're all pretty across the board in agreement on. This is not someone who has the killer instinct. You would say this is not someone who is ruthless, who you would know would do what it takes to win the game, even stab her own best friend. We've never seen that from Jordan. We've never seen her play without Jeff. So that's a factor.
You know, I'm really thinking about
Never
this.
seen her
Like,
form an alliance, be the
it's weird because at the
of-
time,
only seen her be a follower.
I hadn't really
So I
spoken to
think
any
those are all
players
factors
before.
when determining if someone
I've
can
since like
win a game.
talked to Rachel and
those are
Brendan,
all-
and they're
and
like
I
the
think we're
best
all in
people.
agreement here with that. I think that
And so I feel a
Jordan-
lot
I mean,
worse
as much- I
thinking
love-
like,
this is a
oh,
rank of
I think
who
Rachel
we
is
love
still
the
lower
most
than
and
Jordan.
who's the nicest person. I think Jordan Lloyd probably wins and takes the cake. She is a very kind-hearted soul, very nice person. And I think she's- You know, but she is. She's great.
You
Jordan's
said
great.
you said that before on the last podcast. For real, like I'm serious now. Let's move on. Nobody cares about Jordan Lloyd. Let's move on.
Well,
Brent.
Oh, Taran wants to say something. Go ahead, girl.
Well, I was the one person who didn't put her in last place, and I should probably explain that.
Oh, okay, yes, I know who you put in last place.
It's okay. So to be fair to the bottom 3 that I put in the bottom 3, they're all kind of interchangeable in my eyes.
I've
Jordan
since
is
come
the
to
least
think
strategic of the
it's a
3.
bottom 4.
But I see Jordan as someone who's going to go far in almost any season of Big Brother, and just the fact that she's going to get
Because somebody's
far
been added in since
means
then.
that
Mhm.
there are some
Right.
opportunities for her to win a couple competitions and
How
get
nervous
to the
I
end
am.
and win because she's really likable, and that's what we saw happen in Big Brother 11.
Probably
and
wouldn't have
probably
made that
doesn't
observation.
happen without the coup
Probably
d'état.
just a self-reflection
But-
kind of thing.
I do.
I just, like,
have
I
her
misspoke, and then I,
above
like,
some other people who
Haha,
who
it
might
at
be
myself.
more strategically sound, but have qualities
Like it
that
mattered.
actively detract from their ability to stay in the game.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and yeah, that's fair. And I think that if Jordan got a little more lucky in Big Brother 13, she could have won again, which is pretty crazy. We have her in last, yet she almost won twice. So that is something.
I actually think I might be a little high here
just looking at it on paper.
On Jordan talking about. I feel like I talk about how I feel like she's likely to make it far. I don't know if that's necessarily even the case. I think she's an archetype that can make it far, but I don't know if she's always going to, or even if she's particularly likely to. But Armads just subscribed for the 8th month in a row. Thank you, Armads. 8-monther.
During the last podcast that when we
You're the
talked
man.
about Jordan, you said the same thing, and it's obvious you feel totally
I don't
guilty.
know. I have a hard time seeing
like
Jordan
you must
show
know
up to a
her
Big
or
Brother
something.
season and go out early.
Jordan stick together, Brent. Jordan.
Okay.
Together.
Well, I feel like the problem is that Jordans go early all the time.
She's nice.
You know what I mean? It just this particular Jordan didn't happen to go.
See, the next Jordan is going to have
a
lot of pressure on them.
Certain people will never be
regardless of what country they play in.
And likable, and we got to at least.
I meant like the
that
archetype.
is what it is. We've got to at least mention that for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I thought we were talking about the
likable,
Jordans of
and is perceived
Jordan
to
Alliance
be
we were just talking
not
about in the
super
podcast.
intelligent and not super athletic, so not a threat in almost any sense of the word.
And comes into any game with a reputation of trustworthiness, which is something that I factored in as well. Who comes in seen as conniving versus who comes in seen as loyal.
Right. But I think also, too, and why she probably fell to the bottom for most of us was the fact that being perceived as not a threat. There's a difference between not being perceived as not being a threat and actually being a threat, whereas Jordan is not perceived as a threat because she probably isn't really a threat.
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead.
Jordan basically is playing a lottery when she plays Big Brother, and I think she's going to win more often than a couple, maybe one other person that's won, maybe two other people that have won, not due to anything she does intentionally necessarily, but it's going to happen because of her personality. It's kind of well suited to Big Brother. If she had a strategic mind, she'd be an incredible player.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I agree with Taran that I think she's probably a safer pick than people I have higher on my list. But again, yeah, like it just speaks to probably a difference in choice.
I think I'd probably bump Jordan up.
I would hope so.
1 or 2 spots. I think she might be the top of the bottom 4.
For my life, if they don't have the ability to, kind of.
I would
take
say
out their
that's
own best
exactly
friend,
where
and
she
I don't
lands
think she
for
has that.
me.
No, she doesn't. And we're gonna move on from Jordan because we got a lot to cover here. So Jordan Lloyd, 16th on the list. We're gonna move up 1 to number 15 on the list. And
like Jordan is essentially
also played
a different version of Casey.
She played in season 12 and
Just
season
a
13.
less competitive.
She's known for winning lots of competitions. She won by a vote of 4-3 on her season. She
less
won
strategic.
in a bit of a controversial fashion because of some help maybe from Allison Grodner. And she's got a lot more she's a lot more strategically sound in my opinion than Jordan Lloyd, but she fell pretty low in our ranks. The highest person to rate her was Brent. He had her at 12.
Shocking.
And the lowest person to rate her was Herren. He had her at 16. And that is Rachel Riley, ladies and gentlemen. Rachel Riley. So, and Brendan, I'm very sorry. Brendan Villegas actually listened to the season ranks. And we were talking, and he heard Brent. He said,
"What a sweetheart."
He was Brendan is a very nice guy. Brendan was
so awesome.
We love Brendan so much.
I mean, I trashed season 13, and he was like, "Don't worry about it, man. Don't apologize."
Yeah, he's a great dude. Brendan and Rachel are and again, great people, nice people, awesome, love them very much. But unfortunately,
Jordan, we get it.
Rachel is down here near the bottom of this rank once again here. Brent, I'll let you have the floor. You had Rachel at 12.
I do think Rachel's still.
You talked about how great season
still down there.
You're allowed to say it. You're a Big Brother commentator. You can say it.
Well, it's like you want to give,
I know.
especially because like there's a different perspective I have of her now. I think that she could do very well in a future season. Potentially, I feel like she'd play differently.
I just don't feel like Rachel's going on these seasons to be the best player. She just happens to, I don't know. She happens to have skills that advance her farther in the
wants to put
game,
her
but they're
higher
not
because I just love her
great
as a
skills.
player,
I don't really
love
know.
her as a person. But let's be fair. She's going to be out early. I think some of the time.
Skills.
I do think that if you, heaven forbid, take Brendan out of the equation and just put Rachel in the house as she was the first time she went in, I think that she probably finds a showmance, half the time and finds a guy to hide behind, which is effectively what happened in both of her seasons. I mean, I know the one time she was evicted before Brendan.
You just look like you're sitting in front of when you would take school pictures in like grade school.
I don't know if it was her intent,
and they would have those backgrounds. That's what you look like you're sitting in front of.
It was just a wall. There's a TV above my head.
Than the rest of you because I do feel like she understands.
Like Jordan looks like he's in his bedroom. You just look like you're in front of like a screen.
I have 2 seasons to look at with her body of work, and she has gotten better. I do hold it against her that she doesn't hold her tongue when she should. I feel like she almost gave up at Final Four in Big Brother 13 until Jordan said, hey, go in and talk to her and see if she'll evict me instead, And then earlier in that season, obviously, when she was just horrible to Danielle, which was obviously entertaining to see, but it wasn't a very good strategic decision. I mean,
I'm not even sure what Brent is arguing here.
By doing that. But I placed my chips on her a few times. If she can get in the right situation with the right alliance, with a couple meat shields around her, if she can get towards the final 7, final 6, I like her chances. So I'm not as down on her as the rest of you are.
Okay, Taran, you had her at 16, so she's last for you. If Rachel
Taran,
Riley were to
explain.
play 100 games of Big Brother against a random field, how many times does she win?
How many times are there twists that are...
Whatever.
No.
It's all the zingers.
I genuinely think Rachel's personality, she's kind of like the opposite of Jordan, right? Where she goes into Big Brother and she is naturally not attuned to Big Brother. Her personality just doesn't fit with it. And it's not saying anything bad about her personality. I think she has a great personality. She's very entertaining. But in the game of Big Brother, it's a huge detriment to getting further in the game. And she probably had, and I think this is why Brent likes season 13 so much, is she had probably the hardest road to get to the end and win than anybody else because of all those natural handicaps. And it's certainly impressive that she managed to overcome that. But if I put her in 100 seasons, I'm not expecting her to be able to overcome that very often. So that's unfortunately why I have her in last place. And I'm sorry to Brendan, but it's the way I see it.
Yeah, and something too that's with Rachel, and I was just looking over at some of the numbers, and Rachel's kind of like a bull in a china shop, which, I mean, sometimes it's being really aggressive can work to your advantage, but in a game like Big Brother, it doesn't always work out that way. And I was just looking just a random thing that I pulled out. So weeks in which she didn't avoid nomination without some type of win in Big Brother 13, there were 3 times. So she was either nominated or she won a competition every single week except 3 times. And 2 of those times, Jeff and Jordan were HOH. So really, it was
and
one time.
There were 2 twists that saved her.
Closely aligned with one HOH, and she didn't get nominated. And that is not a formula for success more often than not. And I think that's something that I at least kept in mind when I was ranking Rachel.
Which means she survived the block twistless.
So, that's
not very many times.
Why I think and again, Alex, I think you're in agreement with most of this stuff here as to why we've got her.
13 was not a season I watched.
Yeah, I think we are all
watching it, and then when they had the partners twisted final 6.
Yeah,
very.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like Brendan
in touching on kind of why
Brendan being there, right, to go before her the first time, Brendan coming back to go before her the second time, and then the partners twist at 6 or whatever to prevent Jordan from leaving, so then Jordan is able to go in front of her. That last time,
I think a lot of times
there were multiple times where it should have
like to knock on Rachel, but
gone down.
Scenes of her like sitting there watching people, and then she's like, I can tell they're talking about me, or I can tell they're, so she's not certainly without her merits in the game. I mean, she has some skills that do lend themselves well to Big Brother. I just think the one thing, if I'm picking one skill I absolutely don't want this person I'm picking to have, or the one trait I don't want them to have, it's the ability to be spiteful and not not work with people solely based on what they've done to you in the past. I have to have, if I'm betting on somebody for my life, I have to have someone who's going to explore all options and be willing to work with anyone, no matter what they've done to them. And that's not Rachel.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say, talking to her on Rob as a podcast and seeing other things where she talks about.
All right, I don't need to repeat myself.
Been a player that improves as she.
Oh, I'm saying I think she'd improve. Wow, I even thought that before.
And I think if she went back, when she went back, she was a better player. And I think if she went back again, she'd be an even better player.
Hey,
so
maybe she'll get back on CBS reality TV
to improve, which is something I don't think Jordan has. So that's definitely something that should be considered.
Right. I saw Stacey Elaine say in the chat room that Rachel was so entertaining to watch. And I totally agree. She was entertaining to watch. But this is the one podcast where I'm not taking entertainment into account as far as the rankings. It's just the drive.
Really, Brent?
How do they play the game? How do they adapt to the people in the house? How do they adapt to the social culture?
Maybe the one he
tried
the most.
Continued to evolve in the house as they went along. And
Rachel at 12 out of 16.
I will say one good thing about Rachel, she manages to get people to do something that is not in their own best interest. I remember in Big Brother 13, and yes, it's Jeff and Jordan, but she got them to put up.
You mean
Cassie,
the one person we ranked worse than her?
Threat to Rachel, but was really pretty loyal to Jordan and Jeff. And Rachel and Brendan got their way in that, and they got Jordan to nominate Cassie and got her out of the house. And Cassie obviously was a threat.
It's not a name you hear every day.
Specifically, I think.
Cassie.
So good on her for knowing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but no, Rachel. Yeah, and that's why for me, Rachel's higher than Jordan is because she can pull off stuff like that, Brent, and Jordan can't. Jordan has never shown any.
There's no evidence of it.
There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. So. And I think I'm with Taran in that she is somebody who she improved on her second time. And if she were to go back, she'd probably be even better than she was the first two times. The thing is with her, she's just such a huge target. And that's a really hard thing to overcome when you're playing a game like Big Brother that is such a marathon and not a sprint. Let's move on to number 14, guys. And this is somebody who also, this is a theme with the people at the bottom here, people that have played 2 seasons. And although this person kind of played 2 seasons, but didn't really play 2 seasons, and this person the first time won as well in a very controversial fashion, and they won by a vote of 5-2. They won 3 HOHs. They won the power veto once and were nominated 3 times. They're also very aggressive in the game. It's the winner of season 8. It is Evil Dick Donato. He is in at number 14 on our list. Evil Dick's here. He's pretty low.
I think I'd drop
I had him the
Dick
highest.
below
I had
Jordan
number 11, which I will admit is
in
pretty
the
high.
bottom 2 spot.
I
just like
Brent had him at number 15.
What
Brent,
other
talk
situation?
to us
Like I don't see him ever winning against anybody but his own daughter.
The one thing that really sticks in my head about Dick
people need to watch Big Brother 8 more. I feel like there's so many new fans that maybe haven't seen the old seasons, and
Big Brother 8.
It's kind of sad if people haven't seen Big Brother 8. It's sad to me.
And Dick was let in on the fact that America was effectively helping him at that point, and he said, well, I really was ready to go at that point. He said that. He said I was ready to go at that point. So that, Killer Instinct, I don't know. I mean, he just seemed like he didn't really care for a lot of the game.
I honestly wouldn't even hold that against him because his daughter was there, and that's not a normal circumstance.
Here, And then, I think social adaptability. I mean, he does things that even beyond what Rachel does. He does things that intentionally infuriate other people.
I also think he in today's social political climate,
oh god,
wouldn't even come close.
And he gets off on it, and he had a good time
doing it. Wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
You'll never convince me that there's any evidence of him saying this is my plan long term. After the fact, he might, retroactively say, well, I was doing that because of this, but I don't buy it. And I like I said, I think that he gets booted pre-jury a lot, and I don't even think he wins that much. So, take it away, guys.
Yeah, I think that I would actually disagree with you. I think that the intimidation factor with Dick, I think that there is some strategy behind that, and I think that I do, and I think tactically.
Oh, look, I'm disagreeing there
he's
too.
a good strategist. I think that we saw in 13 when he was back, even though he was not there for very long, he was set up incredibly well. Now, Big Brother is a very long game, and we have no idea how he would have won.
You know who else was set up really well? Brian, Big Brother 10.
But we are high
before the first vote.
But we were high on Brian Hart. I'm very high on Brian Hart. I think Brian Hart's. The thing with Dick is Dick did it twice. He was on his second season. He won a season before that. Yeah, he got a lot of help from Eric Stein. Would he have won that season without Eric? Probably not. I think if there's no
probably Jordan.
Eric Stein.
Absolutely not.
There's no probably about it.
Yeah. Eric Stein is the winner of Big Brother 8 if there is no America's Player. But I do think that
probably.
I think that Dick can do a lot on his own, and I think that strategically, this is a guy that studies this game. He is somebody who is a huge fan of this show, and he understands the game. Now, I think that the problem with Dick is I think that inherently, I think he is going to make impulsive decisions, and he's going to blow up on people like Jen, like certain people in the house, and that's not going to fare well for his game. And he's the type of person who won a season in which that type of gameplay doesn't necessarily translate to every single season. So if he was to play, and I will admit, if he was to play 100 times, he's probably not going to win a ton of the times. But I do think that he's one of those candidates of people that would either be out really early or he would go really deep into the game. Alex, am I insane?
No, I think these are all good points. And Katie Lowe in the chat room just said, you can't say any of this in front of him because he'll pout and rant like a child. And I think that speaks to part of the problem. Like I've seen examples of people like
still fighting with Evil Dick on Twitter.
Dick on
Is that
Twitter
still
for mentioning that Eric
so.
kind of, paved the path for his victory. And like the fact that bothers him so much to me speaks to, somebody who's like socially uncompromising. And we've seen it in his game. The thing that really sets him apart for me, and the reason I have him above Rachel and Jordan, is we've seen him be capable of founding an alliance, of being the focal point that brings others together around. I mean, he really did create that season 13 Veterans Alliance that was able to continue after he was gone. And I haven't seen that from Rachel and Jordan yet. I need
Heather.
If I'm betting on someone, I need them to
just subscribe to the Tier 1 sub for the third month in a row. Thank you, Heather.
That's a big distinction.
I very much appreciate the support.
The thing I would want is for this person to be kind of like water in the house, where they can just like
got some robots.
adapt to anything, fit into any container, and Dick is a cinder block. He will not bend. He will not adapt. He will only harden, break, and crumble. That's all he's got. You know what I mean? And just that complete unwillingness to compromise, to see things from other people's perspective. That really puts him down for me.
Yeah, and so I had trouble rating these bottom three because I really do think they're the three that we have the least information about because of the twists that helped them, and because those twists helped them in most of those cases, we don't really know exactly what would have happened. In Dick's case, we know for a fact he was gone if America didn't tell Eric he had to vote Dustin out. That being said, the whole intimidation thing, for a long time, there was a narrative that it was strategy and it worked well. And I never really bought into that. There was one instance where he was intimidating Kale and it made her lose like a veto.
Right.
And
right.
that's like the time that it worked. Every other instance where he did it, it just made him a target. And he was a target for most of that game. And he had Eric protecting him for most of that game. And I was rewatching some of Big Brother 8 earlier just today, and
Mr. Prepared.
If you want to see like how much of that was strategy, how much of that was genuine, like watch Evil Dick play like keep away with Jen with a cigarette. Like this is not a guy who's in control of what he's doing. And in almost any season, I never see a jury awarding him a victory, and I never see him getting there without a twist like Eric, one of the better players to ever play the game, helping him all along the way.
Don't you think that Dick would be better served if he just said...
Well said, Taran.
As a standing, maybe even pin it at the top of his Twitter page. Eric helped me a great deal. I couldn't have won Big Brother without him. Thank you so much. See you later. You know, I mean,
imagine
I feel like
Evil
it would look
Dick
much
had
better,
that tweet pinned to the top
if
of
he
his
just
Twitter.
admitted it, and and it sort of came around to the truth that we all know, which is he wouldn't.
Why didn't I put Evil Dick last if I knew he would have been gone, except for the twist? Because I also had a pretty good idea that neither of the others would win, except for the twist. I am lower on him now than I was. I think I was probably a little bit influenced, again, by the sense that he was the most strategic of the three, that I think he's the most capable of like getting a plan together, putting people together, stuff like that. But I think like after 3 years of doing more of this, I'm thinking like that's not really worth anything if you're still not gonna win, and I feel like you're more likely to win if you're somebody like Jordan. And honestly, I'm having a hard time between him and Rachel. One of the differences being Rachel, or he won on his first try, Rachel won on her second try. That's useful. Like that's good. So I don't know. It's a tough one, I think.
And I know that if we looked at the whole of Big Brother players in the history of Big Brother US, there are a lot of really, really terrible players. Most players in Big Brother, there's probably more bad players than there are good players in Big Brother. But in terms of the winners of Big Brother, the winners for the most part are pretty damn good. We got some pretty good winners. I mean, we're going to talk as we debate into some of these high upper tier winners. It's going to be really hard because they're all so good. So yeah, being 15 or 14 or 16 on this list is not bad at all.
So this is the bottom three here.
Let's move on from Evil and let's move on to.
So I'm gonna pause it here.
This list, and this is a guy
at 350 or 3751 here. So I mentioned I now believe it's a bottom four. Another person I do adore, but I do think Josh fits into this bottom tier. Just again, in terms of how likely it was that he was going to win, and how likely it would be if he was dropped in a random season, that he'd be able to win it. There were so many things that needed to go exactly how they went, that he wasn't in control of, that caused the win. Paul. Tom points out Paul was his twist, which he really was in a lot of ways. He was this. There was a lone vet who just controlled the entire game and decided on Josh to take to the end, and then screwed up his own jury management and lost.
Right. Where would you feel like Josh slots in? You said it might not be a while till we do another one. I feel like you can say with that.
No, yeah, no. I think he'd be above Rachel and Dick to me. I think it's tough, because I also feel like he is more aware and more capable of with strategy than Jordan is. I don't think that Jordan could have won Big Brother 19. I don't think Josh could have won Big Brother 11.
But Jordan's going to get farther in the game more often than Josh and be in there with the chance to take it home at the end, I feel. So that's why I would put Jordan above Josh.
That's pretty fair. She received more help than he did, I think.
Literally the way you draft is who can I see in the game longer?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
not always. But I think that's pretty fair. My instinct was maybe put Jordan at the top of this four. That might be where it goes. But remember, this me just spent the last week doing nothing but rewatching and thinking about this. Current me is doing this off the top of my head. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different when you go back and do the research because you see things that they did, but it's still, I mean, it's a different perspective when you can just think of all right, what do I know about this person as a player? And it's even what do I know about this person that I've learned since watching the season that,
Yeah, we often talk in generalities, and a lot of times people's generalities are very wrong. Like I said, for a long time, people talked about Dick as, he was aggressive but effective. It's like that was the narrative, but like that wasn't true. So, if I were arguing with somebody and they were bringing up direct points to say, yeah, but Jordan, did this and she's going to, screw herself up here, then I'd have to sort of go down into the trenches a little more. And I feel like that would be lead
for,
to
for what it's worth. I think Josh would do a lot better on a second shot. I think he was just so nervous going into that season, and I don't know, just like hearing from him on podcasts and stuff since. Oh, hi, Kat. I just feel like he would have his head in the game a lot more, and I don't know, I would have a little bit more confidence in him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's somebody that's more likely to improve on their second go than Jordan, who I think is always going to play the same kind of way, not necessarily the same game because different circumstances, but she'll approach it in the same way.
Might not be too long until we get to see Josh on another show.
Yeah, you never know.
We've already filmed.
And I do feel like Josh is kind of somebody that they would be likely to bring back. So that does kind of very, very slightly.
I don't know if getting him back now that he's made
that's
the
true.
jump.
Very, very slightly influences it, but I think my instinct would be to place Jordan at the top of the four, and then if we want to quickly talk about Big Brother Canada, there are a couple of Big Brother Canada winners that I would place into the bottom tier.
A couple. I know one.
I think that.
Hello! I forgot about freaking season 4.
Yeah.
Like, who else?
Sarah and the brothers. The brothers, so hard to rank because they're two people. So it's like that's completely different. But neither of them were great at the game. So
it kind of balanced itself out, since one had like some skills that made them better, and then one had some skills that like dragged them down. So they met in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to imagine if they get brought back, like they're gonna try it again with the stupid brothers twist.
Yeah, and I'd honestly hear arguments that Jillian belongs pretty low
Really?
down there because she had no chance of winning beyond in divine intervention, but which is basically just another, like, Jillian winning because of somebody voting wrong is effectively no different than one instance of America's player saving Dick. You know what I mean? So I think there's definitely a chance that she belongs down there.
But I mean, if we're talking about Jillian coming back in future seasons, and how is she gonna do 25 times that she plays the game, like everybody was saying? That one season, obviously there was special circumstances and why she got the win, but I wouldn't count her out as somebody who could, she's nowhere. I wouldn't say she's anywhere near like the evil Dick level or Rachel level of like she's never gonna be able to do well because of who she is as a player. Like if she can improve on, not being terrible to some of the jury members or just whatever, I feel like she'd be in there with a chance.
Yeah, I agree. But I think looking at it from a single season perspective, she definitely pissed a lot of people off. She definitely had like a Rachel personality, and was in a game that, somebody voted wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably a lot of the Big Brother. There are very few Big Brother Canada winners that I would place anywhere near the even sort of like upper mid tier. So a lot of them fall way in the back because the Big Brother Canada has a lot more twists. The winners are much more likely to be there by random chance, or at the very least, we just know less about their ability as a player because their opportunity to play the game was robbed by random chance it being introduced, aka twists. Or particular twists. I know people get very stickly about.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
they're-
all twists.
obviously
Not all
they're
hashtag. Not all
cracking, like,
twists.
the top of the BB Can winners. I wouldn't put them in like the top 7 if you're combining lists, but I feel like you could sneak in like the top 10, maybe
We'll
like
see.
11.
We'll see
Just-
where it goes.
Just initial thought.
Yeah. All right.
You're gonna have to count
Oh.
me, and you're at
37:52.
All right, and you
3,
can go.
2, 1, go.
Who also has a bit of controversy surrounding him. He only played 1 season, and he won by, and I was surprised to see this because I haven't rewatched his season in quite some time, but he won by a vote of 6-1. He won 2 HOHs.
I
He won
rewatched
1
this
Power
whole
Review. He's
season, I
nominated
believe,
3 times. They call him
preparation
Big
for this.
Baller. It's Adam Jasinski from season 9, ladies and gentlemen. Brent had him at number 7. He was the highest on Big Baller. Alex had him at number 15.
BB9.
Taran, tell us
representing.
about Big Baller. What were you thinking about Big Baller when you were ranking him?
Yeah, so Adam was one of the people I really had to go back and rewatch all of season 9 in preparation for this podcast.
Wait. You watched all of season 9 in this
Yeah.
week?
Oh, God bless you.
Dedication. Okay,
At
Taran,
double speed, to be fair.
I watched a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Good on
And I
you
mean, I
guys.
skipped the competitions and all the nonsense.
Right.
But yeah, because it was one I hadn't watched in a while, and I forgot how much I disliked the season, to be honest. Especially the first half. It actually does get a little better in the second half. But Adam is somebody. He's not a bad player. He's somebody who intentionally was lying low. He was throwing competitions. He was mad that he won a competition on accident, and he was like, "Man, this is screwing me up because I was doing so well lying low." He's really, really good at just playing really dumb. The face he can make, like, it's crazy.
You mean the face he wears all the
Yeah,
time?
exactly.
His face that he has?
The face he had when he got arrested at the airport, that face?
We aren't talking
Yikes.
about that. That is not part of this discussion. Look, I see all these people in this chat room saying, he's a horrible person, blah, 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 blah. 2 things. Okay, 1, we aren't talking about that. 2, if he's using pills, one of the people on this podcast is a recovering addict. I've been clean for 11 years, so don't call Adam out for being a horrible person because he used drugs. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the fact that how good of a player is he and how good can he do long-term if we put him in the game a bunch of times. Go, Taran.
Wait,
Very
and we're here to talk about how he's a bad person.
Glad to see
for
Brent has
selling
always been
drugs,
talking to the
Brent.
chat
That's
as
what
much
we're
as
here to do.
much as he is
Yeah,
today.
well, I didn't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I know, just kidding. It's okay. I'm just kidding. But yes,
I
Taran, go ahead.
reminded you did that. Sorry. There's a difference, though. Yeah, go ahead.
But anyway, watch if you have doubts about Adam, watch the final 2 jury questioning thing. He explains his game pretty well, honestly, for who he is. He talks about how he was constantly trying to maximize his chances of getting to the end. All the things that I want to hear, as somebody who's trying to analyze how well they're doing strategically. And I think his biggest failing is just his personality in general. He is kind of loud and boisterous, and he was in danger that week 1, and he's always going to be in danger. And I think without a cast that's equally as boisterous and loud and abrasive, he's probably going to have a harder time. I didn't factor that in too much because it's really difficult to tell because we haven't seen him face that kind of situation. But he's not the kind of player that I'm going to bet on going into a season because of those faults, even though I do think strategically he has some sound ideas. I think the weirdest thing he had in his game was not nominating Crazy James and then nominating him afterward. Like, that was kind of a mess, and it was like, what were you thinking? But other than that, he did pretty well, and well enough to be where I placed him, basically, which is above the 3 that won with the twists.
Okay, Alex, you had him at 15. So why have him second last?
Taran touched on it a little bit, and that's, I really do believe that there's a lot of, I give him the lowest score of any of these people on anything, and that was his social adaptability. I give him a 1 out of 10. I mean, I really, really didn't see much there that told me that he would do well with varying fields of people. Like Taran said, I think in a house of kind of more low-key people, he's always going to be out early. I really, really would feel very uncomfortable if I was
I don't know if
forced to, bet my life on Adam in a Big Brother.
I don't know if I believe that anymore. Because I feel like, again, and like I said, it's very hard to tell.
They thought Steve was creepy until they got to know him. Adam actually is creepy. Like, there's just something inherent about
Like
Adam.
being in such a crazy cast, I'm sure, like, brought out the crazy in him, right? So it's very hard to tell, like, if he had been in a different cast, what would he have been like? I mean, he is a crazy guy, or at least was on the show, but I think you're largely shaped by your environment, so it's really hard to tell with
almost
the
like
cast stuff.
It'd be crazy to call him like he'd be like a Donnie or something if he came into a cast these days. Like,
Possibly, yeah. I mean,
just the guy that doesn't fit in with anyone, but sticks around long enough. Somebody
like,
tries to link up with him.
without people provoking him into screaming matches, he probably
Yeah.
doesn't get into screaming matches. Like, I don't know. I like the cast thing is such a weird. It's such a hard criteria to judge by.
Tell Alex
Yeah.
why he's wrong.
Well, I don't know if I didn't get the memo, but is Big Brother suddenly casting people who are all low key and quiet? I mean, Alex, I mean, you said well, he if he didn't have a cast that was equally as boisterous as him, that's all they cast nowadays. I mean, that's all that's gonna be in these hundreds of games we're talking about theoretically.
Keep thinking you're laughing, but it's
the
old
people
you
that
laughing.
Grosner and Meehan picked.
And you haven't moved.
They're gonna be like that. They might be different, but they're still gonna be ape-type personalities who just can't keep their mouths shut. I saw a fair amount of strategic acumen from him. I saw some social adaptability, and he's the kind of guy who I think can just fit in with the guys. And he's got a bit of rough patch to him, but I think that it's more excusable on a guy than it is on a girl. Not me specifically. I just think that society thinks that, and thus the house is going to let him get away with more stuff than, say, a girl could if she behaved the same way. I think that he has a good shot to win. If he's not up in the clink, I think he's probably got a good shot to win a few of these seasons if he was cast. Yeah, he is a bit creepy. He is perhaps a horrible person for selling drugs, although I would argue on a completely unrelated topic that that's just a result of the addiction, and all those horrible behaviors are the result of addiction as a whole. But beyond that, I think that most people let the stink that is Big Brother 9 get onto Adam, and I don't think that's fair for him as a winner. The season stunk. Let's be honest. We all hated it. The people were sucky, but I thought his gameplay was sound, and I would be okay with putting some chips on him going forward in another season.
I do think that that Adam is the most misremembered winner by far. Like, the people, they know about the drug charge. They remember the season being so ridiculous. They might remember like the very like offensive comments that he made, and think he's just a crazy drug dealer lunatic. But they would be forgetting the game he played, which was, I think, a lot more nuanced than people remember.
Yeah, it's easy to just throw him at the bottom because no one's really going to argue with you on it. I think that's what I did at first when I put my rankings together. Whenever I did that, but I think I've since raised him up because I think I used to have him at like the bottom, like number 16 or whatever it was at the time. But obviously, I've come around a little bit on that.
Somebody who could go far and actually win a season, and also, I mean, a guy that runs a drug ring. I know this is very controversial, but a guy that can successfully pull off a drug ring and put that together, he's got to be pretty smart to at least do that.
I mean, it wasn't entirely successful.
It wasn't entirely successful, but I mean,
You sure you didn't watch this already?
As much as that's an awful thing to
It's
say,
just-
he did it.
just
So
very
he's
boring.
gotta have something.
I'm gonna always have the same reaction, no matter what.
Really controversial things on the show too about disabled people and those sorts of things.
Not a factor. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. It's like,
but there is something there with Adam, and that's why for me he's a little bit higher than.
I think your hair is lighter
than Jordan
past.
and Rachel in my ranks. I believe
Well,
I
it's
had him
probably better lit.
Yeah, I had him at number 14.
Maybe.
But yeah, I'll admit
differently
I should probably rewatch that season because I haven't seen it in a long time.
I will say really quickly. Sorry, I just want to say, look. Yes, I had him 7. Okay, of all of the people on the list, he's the one I'm the most unsure about. Okay, so you can come at me if you want, but I mean, I'm willing to change my opinion if somebody can argue to me why I'm wrong. But I haven't seen any evidence that it's not okay to put him at 7. You know, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. I feel like, 7 to 11, and he's definitely in the middle tier for me. So I looked at the other people who I have on the middle tier, and I think he's better than them.
I don't have anything to say
I'm on in the
against
chat.
that, but I think this is probably a good point for me to mention about Alex's argument with the cast in general.
I think I already
don't
responded to
feel
that. Amon says Jordan using drug ring acumen as a means to judge BB prowess is an eternal mood.
Anything like that. I feel like those methods of rating somebody aren't the most effective because it's self-referencing in a way. People can look bad because somebody was really good, and if they played in another season, they would look really good. And it's very difficult to compare casts as a whole. So to say that Adam wouldn't do well in a cast that's not as crazy as
I feel like I already said this. Sorry.
We haven't seen him try to be
Hey, you're
cast
prepared.
as crazy as not as crazy as Big Brother 9, and so that's not something that I personally factor in too much, and it'll probably come up in the future, especially when we talk about cast strength. But I want to tag it up here, like it's not something I personally factor into too much.
I see, like, just as a cat, when I reference that, like, I'm not talking about like the strength of the cast so much as like I don't see this person fitting in with this subset of Middle America. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain people I have met in real life that I do not see on any level ever clicking with a guy like Big Baller. And that's, to me, just like interpersonal communication at its core. Like, Adam just will never, Adam and this person.
Marietta wants to know what's Matt's take on these rankings. Need more Matt
There
opinions.
aren't many people on this list
I think
that like
we
that.
covered it
I
during the
think
pause
a
before.
lot of these people,
I
because
think
they were able to
Jordan
win,
should
and I
not have
think,
been number
like I said,
16.
social
Adam seems pretty fair
adaptability,
here.
Not just, the social game, but how it would work.
Otherwise,
Just, I mean,
so
again,
far,
like,
so
I
good.
really do believe there are certain people that would never, under any circumstances, get along with Adam because he just can't bite his. He's very grating, and he would just wear people down. I mean, it was very evident, even with the people who, like we're talking about in his cast, who were boisterous, who were, big person. I mean, he was in danger week 1 with these people. So I think there's a lot of situations where Adam would find himself in trouble early on.
Yeah, but Alex, I think that's a fair point. But is he bad enough where they're going to come after him? I say no. Like, yeah, they may not click with him. Yeah, they may not click with him, but I feel like he's just gonna scrape by. Like, I feel like he's gonna be just beyond the line where he's like, okay, I'm not totally annoying them at this point where they're going to want to get me out.
Like, essentially,
I feel like
I'm never
there's always
drafting
gonna be
Adam
bigger fish to fry because, as
in,
Taran said,
like,
he's kinda
the
meh
all-winner
at everything.
season,
So it's like, you're really going to
unless
waste your HOH on this guy?
it's
You know,
like
he's kinda
Adam,
and everything? Go ahead.
Dick, and Rachel
Yeah, and I
left
think
on the
too,
board.
and partially, I think
And
the
I'm up
problem
next
with
to make a
Adam
pick.
with season 9 was he got paired with Sheila, who right off the bat just did not like him, and I think that is kind of what.
If anything, I feel like he might just end up being
season
like
where
one of
there
the
weren't
week
those
1, 2,
pairs,
3
I
boots
think
in a
that
season
maybe
these
he could have
days.
avoided that.
It's possible. I mean,
especially if the
Jen and Ryan
I mean,
early on, and Parker
I guess
and all
it'd be a
those
returning
because of the
season, returning
relationship
player
they have.
season, but
another conversation
it's
for
about,
another
like,
day. And
with
I will
all the,
preface
But here's
this
like
by
his personality is grating, but his strategy wasn't. Like, he's not going to be somebody that goes in strong and tries to like play super hard, super fast. And because of that, like, he's not a threat to you in the game, but he is actually a strategic threat. So that's
Right.
you know what I mean?
I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, I'm thinking like Steve, Big Brother 20. Like, he's not the biggest threat to you or anything like that, but he ends up on the block. No one's sticking their neck out to save the guy.
Yeah.
Sort of controversy towards their win or some sort of problems,
Or at least 6
Adam.
people
So
are, and Caitlyn is not.
These people from here on out, I think the rest of these people, I think we've kind of we've passed the bottom tier. Is that correct, guys? Would you say that?
I would agree.
I my bottom tier is the bottom 3.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. So,
Just above that.
okay. But
And
anyway.
you did mention we should probably briefly mention the whole controversy at Final 4 with the whole question about pre-existing relationships in the house, and I do think that
What a
probably did
sham.
benefit Adam's game.
Robbed
but
queen.
I don't think it mattered too much in
Sharon.
the end.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And yeah, that's the whole thing with Sharon. I think that was a travesty, but again, save that for the evolution of strategy for season 9 of Big Brother. Let's move on, guys. Okay, so
Something
number
like
12 in the ranks is a man who has also who's only played this game only once. We were in agreement on for the most part in this guy.
Are there more returning
because Alex and Brent,
players?
you guys had him at
Winners?
number 11. Taran and
Yeah.
I had him at number 12. He won the game by a vote of 6-1. He won head of household 4 times. He won the power of
Thank
veto once, and he was
Boogie.
nominated twice.
Oh, hello.
He was in danger very early on in the game, but he managed to overcome it thanks to some help from a particular pack that likes to quack, and that is the great Ian Terry. Ian Terry is in at number 12. Alex, talk to us about Ian Terry.
Yeah, so
look at my rankings. I
I
don't even remember where I
personally
put him.
have. I think when you're talking about Ian, you now are having a conversation with these rankings where it's like Ian or Steve, Steve or Ian, because these are very
I
similar.
don't like that
I
comparison.
mean, I think a lot of us have come to realize that these were very similar trajectories, played by somewhat similar.
I don't see them as very similar,
certainly similar casting type. You know what I mean? To me,
gameplay wise.
with both
Mhm.
Steve and Ian, you're talking about someone who is excellent or elite when it comes to
Competitions.
strategic acumen, their knowledge of the game, how the game works, what moves to make and when to make them. They know it all. They know that stuff. They've got that down. The implementation is not always there. I think it's an interesting distinction, and that's why I make it specifically is for a guy like Steve or a guy like Ian, because you can know everything to do and still in the moment get a little flustered, not trip over your words a little bit, not be able to really deliver what
Yeah.
you need to deliver.
This
to
is
get
exactly where I have
the
Ian
strategy
actually in my
implemented that you want to
rankings.
implement.
Had I ever
And
talked to Ian
think
before this? I think so.
that's, why Ian isn't as high as some other people on this list, and also
Well,
the
yeah,
social
Ian used to be
game
on every
opportunity
single
is
Thursday night podcast. I'm sure
not-
your paths crossed
I
at
would
some
say
point.
it's below average. And to me, yeah, I mean, I think the only difference between Ian and Steve, I have Steve lower than Ian. And to me, it's just
He was on-
I
yeah, he
thought
was
Steve
on all summer.
slightly less adept when it came to actually implementing his strategy. I
Steve
thought he
lower
was
than
more
Ian.
prone to nervousness and kind of stumbling over.
I would not put
himself
Steve
than
lower than Ian.
once he kind of came into his own in
No.
the season. But yeah, I think it's an interesting debate.
I mean,
think
coming
Ian
right
and
off of
Steve are
BB
kinda
17, I
interchangeable,
think
and for most people that come up
initially I
around
would have,
here,
just
right
because-
around kind of 2/3
I
down
mean,
the
wait,
list.
Steve isn't in this, or
Taran,
he is?
You
He is.
had Steve,
Okay,
and
so
we're
we'll talk
spoiling this a little
about
bit,
him,
but you have Steve higher in your ranks than you did Ian. Why do you think Ian ranks lower than Steve?
To try to make it as simple as possible, I think Steve was more likable in his season to the players around him. I think Steve had more awareness of what was going on, and he was making decisions based on what was actually happening in the house. They were informed decisions. They weren't always the right decisions, but they were at least informed, and there were arguments both ways when he did go a way that might have been wrong. And he had slightly less reliance on the competitions. I think Ian is one of the winners who relied on competition wins the most.
I'd say
out
more
of
than
everyone,
slightly.
all of the winners. He was immune from what like for like 5 or 6 weeks straight to all the way to Final Four, based on his competition wins. So in general, I do have Steve higher, mostly because of the awareness factor, and then also a little bit because of the likability factor.
Brent, you're in agreement with that?
I'm in agreement with that, and by a lot. Like, for everyone arguing, is it Steve or is it Ian? To me, it's not close, and I don't even know why we're talking about it. Like, Ian
Wow,
didn't know what
in
the
complete
fuck he was
agreement
doing.
with Brent.
He didn't know
This is
anything
weird.
when he walked into that house. He might have been a bit.
2015,
he might have been a Big
we'll,
Brother trivia expert
always remember
and been
these
able
times.
to tell you everything that happened in the previous season, but he had no social awareness. Didn't half the time things are completely over his head. Doesn't know what the hell's happening in the second.
And see, this
double
didn't really
eviction
come
when Dan's
across
trying
on
to get
the
out. Ian's agreeing to go on the block.
episodes,
He's
as far as I
okay,
remember.
Oh no, he was
one of
invisible on
the
the
renegades.
episodes.
Oh, okay.
They never
That's why,
showed
because-
him.
Memphis,
because
so-
because I did not watch the season
yeah,
live. That's
exactly.
why I had Ian ranked like I had Ian probably touching the top like 6 when I first watched it. But then talking to people and learning more about the season, obviously I adjusted. But
Wait, are you talking about not seeing Steve or not seeing Ian?
Ian,
And fell to a lot of stuff.
Ian's failings weren't on the episodes. Yeah.
I thought Ian was a lot better than he was based on the episodes.
Yes. It's kind of the reverse situation where Ian was like a fan favorite. Everyone's rooting for Ian on the episodes, whereas Steve was like not on the episodes for a long time. They didn't even show like half of his alliances. The freak show, I think.
I just remember the diary room chart for BB17. Like Steve had like so many episodes without a diary room.
Yeah, they did not show what he was doing, and this was the first U.S. season that I was covering, and I kept talking about like Steve is the second best player in the house. He's doing well, like he's doing some things, and even Rob was like,
He's
"Really,
stupid, he's a
Taran?
loser."
Really, Taran?"
Yeah. I think they released it into the house to save Dan. It ended up saving Ian because when Frank
Ian was gone that
to
week.
backstab Ian and Brittany, he couldn't put up Ian because Ian had the ball. So he had to take the next second best shot, which was go after Brittany. Ian would have been out then. Ian would have been out on the shark maze thing.
Yeah.
And only by the grace of Dan was Ian not out at Final Four. So, you know, first of all, I'm the one out of all the three of us who podcasts with Ian on Thursday nights. I love him. I would love to party with him. I'm gonna be Jordan for a second and say how much I love the guy that I'm, placing in, the lower tier here.
Shade.
But I think he would admit that he got caught with his pants down quite a bit, and you can't tell me that if he played again, that wouldn't happen again. I think it's fair to say it would.
I do have a couple of things briefly. I don't fault him too much for the week one thing because he was immune. We never saw what would have happened had he not been immune. And also it's week one. Things happen on week one that are not always in your control. Definitely a fault, but not too big of a fault. As far as the veto goes, the veto ball, he probably had a decent chance to win that veto, so he might have been safe anyway had he won the regular veto. But again, I think you're completely right.
Did that happen
in
before
general.
the veto? No, that was after the veto.
And I think another factor is throwing the first part of that HOH, final HOH to Dan. I listened to his retrospective on Dom and Colin, and he said a large part of that was just out of gratitude for Dan saving him at Final Four. And part of it was that he thought he had a better chance against Danielle in part 2, and he would rather go to part 3 with Dan. But how can you trust anything Dan says? So in general, I think that's a big mistake. And I will say, like Brent, Ian's probably one of my favorite winners, if not my favorite winner, personality-wise. I love Ian, and I genuinely think that in the last few years, he's matured and he's gotten smarter about the game. And I think if he went back, he'd be way better.
Yet again, 3 years removed.
So there is that kind of asterisk next to him where I think if Ian plays again, he's almost definitely going to move up in this rank. But Ian himself, on his retrospective, ranked himself at number 8. And that was for Big Brother 14 to 11 in his own rankings. If he thinks he's better than him, if not, maybe he's around 10.
What just happened?
So I think me
glitch.
And
Blab was
glitchy. I think all of us are probably not too far off from where Ian ranks, even himself. So, and that's a great thing about Ian too.
Totally.
Go ahead,
I will say
Jordan.
this: Sharon said in the chat that Steve was far more aware of Vanessa's game than Ian was of Dan's game, and that takes the whole cake right there. That's what I'm talking about.
I'll see that and raise Steve's social awkwardness, which is leaps and bounds worse than Ian's.
I don't think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so at all.
There were so many conversations I watched on feeds where Steve is like, dude, 30 times a day with if I'm annoying, please tell me. Like, people were getting annoyed just at that phrase. Like, people were getting mad at Steve just over being asked if they were mad at Steve. I mean, that's crazy.
Right,
that's a level of social awkwardness that, like, I couldn't buy.
You're like watching yourself.
At the end of the game, he has a lot of friends.
This is the fun
in that
part,
house,
watching you guys argue.
friends. And Ian had Brittany and kind of Ashley, and most of the other people, they didn't like him very much.
They didn't like him. They voted for him because he wasn't Dan.
Exactly. I think socially, Steve was a more likable person in the game for reasons that Rob kind of preseason thought would have the opposite effect, which is he wasn't as willing to kind of try to fit in as much as he was. He was Steve, and he was going to talk about how he didn't drink very much, and he was going to cuddle with his teddy bear and talk about his mom, and that was annoying, but also endearing in some ways. So I don't think it's, at the very least, I don't think it's as clear cut as you're making it out to be.
I agree. I just think there's a lot of people Steve would play with.
For instance, on Survivor this season, Christian is a super nerdy guy, also very lovable. Being nerdy and socially awkward does not make you bad at these games necessarily.
I mean, for me, I think we are factoring in who they are now. Like I
Also
was.
doesn't make it.
I was.
I was listening to a podcast before someone was calling Christian the best player of the season.
Well,
sure
let's
I
not
agree
get
with
crazy.
How his new personality fits into the game, then we'll have data to work off of. Right now, it's almost entirely speculation.
See, I'm about psychoanalysis, so I'm not just looking at body work. Like I am trying to project. You know what I mean? Like I am looking at these people.
Oh, I've got a snarky comment in my head. You can see it.
Thinking about how those traits rub on the majority.
Yeah, you got the mouth.
I do agree with what you're saying there.
Open.
But I mean, like, look at Steven, where we see Steven on the podcast.
Oh, I went light.
Steven.
The chat's wondering who was
for
in the
people
freak
who
show that
don't
you were
watch
talking
Survivor.
about.
Freak show
He's on Know-It-Alls.
was the twins,
on Twitter.
Austin,
He's always witty
Steve.
and funny, and he never seems like he's the kind of person that would break down. We see him on Survivor. He's
Or
almost
was it,
entirely
yeah,
different
Freak Show was
person.
BB Can
So
4.
I don't think you can really.
Oh, Freak
judge
Show. Yeah,
very
Freak Show was BB Can
well,
4.
based off
I was talking about
the very limited information we
Freaks
get
and
about
Geeks,
who
yeah.
Ian is or who Steven is,
Salamence. Same.
without seeing them in the house, and that's why I say we have to wait until he goes back.
I
believe
watching
Freaks
Steven on
and
Know-It-Alls
Geeks
told me he was prone to something.
morphed into the Scamper Squad.
I think I can
They were right.
understand.
Wow,
They
look
were
at-
Freaks
look
and
at
Geeks
Psycho
for like weeks, never shown on the show, and then weeks and weeks later, they were told you're not allowed to use that name because it's copyright. You need to change the name, and they're like, "Why are you only telling us now?" And it was because they just finally realized this is a really relevant alliance to the show, and we're finally going to show it.
Maybe not necessarily now, but based how they would do it after they played that one game. And if you look at Ian that entire season, he really grew exponentially on a social level, and just I think Mike Boogie said it. He went in as a boy and he left as a man. I think that if Ian were to go back now, I think that he would be a completely different player. I mean, that's just my thing. Brent,
Yeah,
I'm with
sorry,
Brent here. I'm
I hate that.
Everyone's
phrase.
opinion is valid here. Absolutely.
yeah.
One more person says that you went in as a boy and you left as a man. Shut the fuck up. I'm so tired of hearing that. I'm serious. Austin, shove it. Seriously, I'm so sick of it. No, I'm 40 years old and I'm still a boy. So take that.
Yeah, and
True
I
statement.
never saw the growth narrative in Ian's storyline that other people did. I feel like he was pretty consistent throughout. Just people kind of got to know him. Same thing with Steve, pretty much. They were consistent throughout, and people just got to know them, and that made them a little more comfortable. But in general, I never, if anything, I saw Ian as declining as a player as he went on, because he went further and further into Dan's crazy world.
But
I don't think week one Ian. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go, Alex. Go.
I don't think week one Ian would have told everybody in the house that if they take Frank to the end, they're fools. I think that's an example of Ian growing some balls in that
I think
house.
that's just because he got more comfortable with the people in the house. You know, if you're a socially awkward person, you're meeting a bunch of people for the first time, you're going to be exponentially worse than you are
But
after you spent months with them.
But here's the thing. Look at Steve. I mean, Steve towards the end was still incredibly
Panic attacks.
All these people, right? So I don't know. And also too,
He also cut Vanessa.
Ian was still in the
What
hammock
does that
at
have to
the
do
end
with
of the game.
gameplay? He's
But no,
Alex,
but
wait, no.
It's stress factor.
So what? He
Works
still
on
made the
Steve,
moves he
like-
needed to. He still did. I can't even believe we're talking about Steve right now. We're not talking about Steve. Steve hasn't even come up yet. Like,
To me, it's two sides of the same coin. I understand it's not for you, but
yeah,
I
but
got you.
and also too, and we'll move on because it seems like we could talk about this one all day.
Yeah,
but
it's a good
Who
one.
knew?
Fault, this is a really good one. I'm glad. This is only number 12, ladies and gentlemen.
See, I think this is really
Let's take it to
indicative
number
of
but Fault,
like sort of the two sides of what's being argued throughout the podcast, which is that for whatever reason, Brent is a little more on my side of thinking, which is look at what they did, let's analyze their gameplay. And I feel like Jordan and Alex tended to be a little bit more of like, let's analyze their personality and how that fits into the game. Like talking about Steve and or Ian and his growth narrative and all of that, and Alex talking about psychoanalysis and I feel like that perfectly leads into the Dan versus Will debate, which is sort of the the crowning achievement of this podcast, I think.
He's below
I mean,
average.
just I guess to be fair to Alex, I remember also being really down on Steve, or not really down, just like not as high as I am now, wherever that is, because I think it was just a whole lot of like, I don't know. He was kind of awkward on feeds, of course, and it was just like watching Vanessa lose. I think maybe just made my opinion of Steve like, I was like, this great player Vanessa almost won the game, and then Steve won the game.
Yeah, well, I like not even necessarily saying that it's like coming from a wrong place, but like I think it's shown in like Alex ranking Adam really low. His personality sucks, and I think that like the way that they're looking at it is a little bit more personality focused, whereas I'm trying to look at Adam from like strip away his like who he is, only look at what he did in the game and how effective it was, and only think about personality in regards to how it affects his actual game and how realistically it impacted his game.
Right.
Well,
I guess you and Brent are similarly ranking, except for Rachel.
Yeah.
That one doesn't fit in.
At very adept in competitions. I think that strategically also, I mean, it's not 100% there, but he's got some of it. He's a guy who won by a vote of 4-3, so it was a very close vote. He won 4 head of households. He won the.
It's ridiculous that it was a 4-3 vote.
He was nominated only one time, and that is a guy who also was recently seen on TMZ a few years back for getting into some domestic violence issues, and that's not really good. But anyway, this guy on his season was very well liked, and that is the winner of season 5 of Big Brother. That's Drew Daniel. Drew Daniel comes in.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 4-3 vote, but 2 of those people were twins.
Highest ranked by Alex and I.
Just like if you ever want to argue against like the jury management is everything, the jury is always right. Just remember that Cowboy he was 1 vote away from being a Big Brother winner.
That way at one point, which is kind of to me more objective. I have 4 tiers, and Drew is like soundly in that second tier of people who played with a group or with a partnership, and they were kind of the alpha of that group. I think Drew's a good example of someone who's kind of very average, very kind of, replacement level, if you will, at the strategic game. I think he was better at strategic implementation than strategic acumen, which is rare. I think he's one of those guys that doesn't necessarily know what to do every time, but if someone like Diane were to give him a plan, he was executing flawlessly, as we saw with like the 6-finger plan. He was able, it wasn't his idea, but I mean, he was able to pull
These
the wool over
rankings
the
are
eyes
still
of
pretty
his
much
own
following
alliance,
mine,
which,
but I have
whether or
somebody
not
else
that was
slotted
the move
in
he should have made, you can argue, but he certainly
right around here.
implemented
Yeah.
it very effectively. Jace had no idea.
Who do you
until it
have?
was too late. I
have,
think, when
Casey,
it comes to social game, I think
right
it's
around here.
excellent. I think
Yeah.
there's going to be very
I have
few
Drew, Casey,
people
Ian.
that won't respond to some level of Drew Daniels' personality.
Yeah, that's a good.
No matter who
It's a good
they
call.
would cast, I think Drew is the kind of individual that can find common ground with
Because
almost everybody. And we saw that.
I think Drew and Casey are pretty similar. Drew's was very likable, very good at competitions. But I do think that Drew has some advantages over Casey in that I think he was a little more strategically focused, more capable of making his own strategic moves, and then most importantly had the killer instinct to, make the move he needed to make in order to ensure his win at the end.
Second to last
I
bottom
mean,
tier.
both of them won by 1 vote.
I have him just above Ian and Adam. Not too far above them, but
So I would have
generally above him. He's also the first.
I would have
of,
Casey.
an archetype.
I
that
think I would have.
There are better versions of that we'll talk about in the future.
I've gotten higher on Ian over the last 3 years, especially talking to him for the Taran show, and hearing about like his crazy like mind and how good he is going to be at these competitions. Just like I think he's one of the best competitors that the show has seen in terms of the mental competitions, and so that's always going to be really dangerous. However, since I like sort of was higher on him because of that, I've also since gone, well, look at the most recent season. They were not a bunch of mental comps. They were a bunch of throw balls around comps, and he would not be good at those. So I've almost gone back down on him. So I would probably have Casey. I'd probably have her below Ian, maybe above Ian, maybe right around where Ian is, but I'd still have Drew above them both.
I think I gotta keep Casey above Ian.
Yeah,
because it's not like Casey's a slouch in the competitions. Like, she can hang with any of them.
Yeah, I mean,
she didn't really talk about it a whole lot. She was doing plenty of studying, and she was well prepared for everything.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's probably Ian, then Casey, then Drew.
In general, I think he's a pretty good player. I think he'll do well in most seasons, but there are better versions of him in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can get into that a little bit later. Something that I really love about Drew, and I don't think a lot of people really think
something I think I just talked about and that we glossed over was that I think Drew fits into this archetype that is similar to people like, not necessarily Casey, but like people like someone will talk about, Lisa, Hayden, just like these very good-looking, just would in regular life be very popular, very socially adept, always super likable, also have a decent enough head for the game, going to be decent at competitions. I feel like that's the best personality type for Big Brother that has proven to be the most successful.
Yeah, I was a big advocate when people were I feel like there was some like people questioning when Survivor did the first Brains Beauty Bronze season. They're like, people are on a beauty tribe, and like they're like that's supposed to be their advantage in life, that they're all beautiful. Well, yeah, kinda. There's an aspect to that in these games. I think it didn't make a whole lot of sense at first, but when you think about it, it's something to consider.
On Twitter, when Steve cut Vanessa, it's not really a big move if it's the only move you can make, to win the game. So I don't know how much credence I give that, because if he takes Diane, he knows he's losing to her. So I don't know. I didn't really care for his game. I didn't think he had any strategic chops.
Little did Brent know he'd be wishing for the days of Drew Daniel in the coming seasons.
Beyond today, does he have that? I don't know if he did then. He might now. And if he's come out of the closet, he might have a sense of style as well. So Drew, call me. I'm on the phone.
Here's a pretty big factor that I noticed with Drew's game that to me is something I definitely want in the person I'm betting my life on, right? And that's a good degree of like unflappability. I mean, we talked about like Drew, yes, things didn't go according to his plans, and he may have been playing week to week, but when things blew up in his face, Drew was amazingly calm and collected, and he kind of processed and move forward. You know what I mean?
Because Drew, like,
a lot of people that
didn't
have you could sit them down and work
personality. Like, he was just a blank slate.
Give them, coach them
I think
up
Drew is like the
and
closest
they wouldn't be able to do that when push comes
we've
to
ever
shove
seen to
in
a
the middle of
robot
a heated,
play
stressful
Big Brother.
situation. So I think that's a very valuable trait that I want.
He was just like, he was dead in the eyes.
Yes,
have to take your word on
it
that
can't
one.
really be taught. I mean, it can be learned, but it's incredibly difficult to change that kind of behavior if you're someone who's naturally prone to react.
Yeah, and that's something, and Taran touched upon that earlier in the podcast in terms of the rankings of these players, is Drew is somebody, he faced adversity from time to time during the game when he was
But you can see, like,
5, whereas not everybody who has won this game.
Again, where like Alex is talking about like personality traits. I just think it's interesting to see where the differences in like approaches are stemming from.
The king of controversy.
Maybe we'll get back. Yeah, the king of controversy. Maybe we'll get back into some more controversy with this next person, number 10 on the list. And this person, he's a likable guy. I really like this guy. I'm a big fan of this guy. But I had him the lowest out of everybody here. I had him at number 13. Brent had him the highest. He had him at number 6. This guy won by a vote of 6-3. He won a lot of competitions. He won 4 HOHs. He won 2 power vetoes, and he was nominated 5 times. And that is the aforementioned Steve Moses. Steve Moses comes in at number 10. So, Brent,
there he is.
Back to this one, Jordan. So why don't you tell us why you think he's so bad?
Well, I don't think Steve is bad. I think that Steve is good, and I think
his
that he played a really strong game.
spot in the top 10 might not be there anymore.
For me, I really value social play, and I think that Steve
There have been 3
socially
winners.
is one of the weakest.
Josh
winners
is
on
lower,
this
Casey's
list. And I think
lower.
That's what
Haven't
really
talked about
hurts him. He relied a
Yeah,
lot on
Nicole
those
and
competition
Steve
wins.
have always been
Strategically,
back
very
and forth
good. He
for me.
positioned himself very well. Wasn't able to always implement plans the greatest, and he needed some help for along the way. I know that Johnny Mac talked on the podcast with Rob a few weeks ago. If you haven't listened to that, definitely check that out.
I do have
But he
Nicole
said
higher.
that, Steve, a lot of times, and this did happen.
Yeah, my thing with Nicole is that I think she played a better game, a better winning game than Steve. She was a better player her second time than Steve was his first time. However, that was her second time. That's a massive advantage. How well did she play the first time? I actually think she wasn't too bad. She was up against the brick wall that was Derrick, so that's a fail. It's hard to fault her that much there. But Steve was up against Vanessa and managed to weasel his way in. So
he got in with Vanessa.
Yeah.
Nicole was never able to get in with Derrick. So
she had an in. She just wasn't able to capitalize on it. So I think I am inclined to put Steve ahead of Nicole.
To think that they could tell him what to do. He wanted Vanessa to think that she could tell him what to do. That was strategy on his part. I love Steve because he, out of all the winners on the list, and I have him at 6 on my list. 6, okay, out of 16
That's
people, I
too
have him
high.
6, because he was able to clearly delineate a strategy from start to finish before the game even started. And he followed it to a T.
I feel like Nicole is one of the
Steve knew who
people,
he was. He
one of the
knew
winners
what he
that
was
people
going
have
to
like the
be
most
going into the
disagreements
house.
about.
He used that social
I mean,
awkwardness
Steve is one
and
too.
adaptability to
Yeah.
his advantage. People were like, I know that Alex talks about the fact that some people got annoyed by the fact that he was, saying, oh, well, please tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, but they never did anything about it. They never even considered doing anything about it. It was just something for them to bitch about, okay? If people don't, if they
Also,
aren't going to do
these
anything
guys
about
all
it, then I
have
really
the
don't
same
care
color
about it.
wall,
I think
and you
Steve
don't.
knew exactly where he was
Not just
in the
like
whole game.
what I said before about
Every
your wall.
moment.
But like,
There was
how
never
did these
one
all
in the game
the
that you
exact
could point
same
to me
10?
to
Three
say, this is
three
where Steve got
different,
caught with his
very
pants down.
different like
Even at Final 3,
places.
Steve said that where
This is why we needed to
Geographically.
have So You Think You Can podcast, because not only was it the same four white guys, it's the same freaking same white walls in the background.
evicted him at Final 3.
Well, not
This
me.
is a few points in my opinion.
Yes.
I'm
because he
different.
had to depend on the
I'm bringing
competition
in the
win
wall
to
diversity.
win the game, whereas Johnny Mac says the other answer. He's probably out in third. Actually, he's definitely out in third. But I like the fact that he told us what he was going to do.
Has Melissa never
before
had the
game
chance to
even
rank
started.
winners
He was
yet?
able to implement
No.
that strategy. He was able to use his
Crazy.
weaknesses as strengths, and he was never
I'm underrating
surprised
Steve
from
since
start
when?
to finish.
I have him in the
don't
same
think,
spot.
by what was going on in the
It's
house.
before.
And I can't wait to talk to him on the podcast because I really want to know, were there times where you didn't know what was going on? Because I think the answer is mostly no.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree that Steve is strategically elite. I think all of us are on the same page with that. And,
laughing
I
at the
think,
walls.
whereas,
you could definitely
I'm
sell me on
I'm
the fact
kinda
that these
just,
three guys are
coming
in the
down
same
to
room.
kind of- when I was doing rankings, it was
Just-
kind of very simple. I was really
just,
trying to kind of just
facing
give
each
people
other.
point
Yeah.
totals and then just kind of point total it down. And, Drew and Steve are somewhat close in points, but in very different places. Drew has it all his points kind of on the social side and Steve on the strategic. But to me, it just, I have to keep coming back to, and I know that this is not, I don't.
Didn't
wanna kill
Alex
him. I don't
invent
mean to
the,
kill him for it over and
the
over,
switching the
but this is
poster
only
behind
winner
him
we've seen
strategy that
allow
Brent
stress
has
to bother him
taken
so
over?
much that he
Think
has
so.
a physical response to
I remember
stress.
the
I mean,
Big
this is
Brother
a kid who
is
was
watching you
throwing
poster.
up
It's
in the
not always been
bathroom
there.
at
He
3
just
in the
changed it up.
morning because he didn't know how to vote the next day. And that to me is like a huge red flag if I've got to bet my life on somebody. That was something that was a knock for me on Steve.
But
And to me,
Jorge
it's
says in the chat he did those things privately. All those things that you're talking
Agreed.
about, he was doing. Yeah, I mean, nobody knew about those things. He's
See,
just
again,
doing
like
them
the
at home.
point
He's
of
talking-
contention
he's calling
here-
for his mommy, to us. The cameras
Yeah.
are the only ones that are seeing that. It's not the other people in the house. He knew to keep that confined to himself.
Is about personality.
And the train
Sorry, I didn't
didn't
mean to
derail. No, you're right. And the train didn't derail this time. But I
love the
you know,
snacking
I
while
felt like it was
podcasting
certainly
approach.
starting to shake at times. You know what I mean? I feel like Steve doesn't necessarily have
Dippin'
the
Dots.
picture
Yes,
that
yes.
I want from say like I talked
Alex
about
is
Drew.
next
You know
year.
when
I could be
kind
in the
of
same
the
room.
wheels came
Thank
loose
you,
a little
Dippin'
bit. Drew was
My
kind
room
of
is like a light,
unflappable. You
though.
don't see a lot of
Theirs is like
unflappability
tan
from Steve,
or
and that to me is a
vanilla.
big factor. Person.
Now, Taran, what do you think about what Alex just said there? So, do you agree with the composure?
The
Because
couch is
that
the same
certainly
color
was a
as the,
thing with
Where
Steve.
did you have him ranked, Taran?
Taran
I
had
had
him
him.
9.
9. Okay.
Yes, at 9. I think the thing about
9.
Steve is that he is completely aware of all of the weaknesses that you mentioned.
I'm
He
pretty
knows
sure
that
the
he's not very
chart
good socially.
is
He
on
knows
the
that he's not
website
going to be able to
page.
implement
Have you seen that?
very complex strategic plans. And he
Wish
adjusts
I
his
had pulled
strategy
up.
based
I
on
can.
that. He is somebody who, more than most people, was able to maximize his chances of getting to the end based on a bad card draw to begin with. Like his personality,
Yeah,
not
I
particularly
think he's
suited
still
to Big Brother, though it is suited to those competitions
9
down the
for me.
road, which is definitely some benefit. And I can definitely attest to some people are saying
I don't know
the
who you
things
had
that
at
he
number
said he was
10, but
doing in his
did we
interviews.
get to them yet?
No,
No,
that's
we haven't
just
gotten
making it
to
up
them.
after the fact. I don't think that's true at all. I was watching him the whole time. I was reporting about it, talking about how I think yes, he's not
I don't
very
even
good
know who you
socially,
have at
but I
number
do
10.
think he's doing the right things to get to where he needs to
Look at
be.
my list.
And it was basically just like a lesser version of what Vanessa was.
Maddie in the chat. Do you remember Steve swearing on his mother's life, looking Vanessa right in the eye? Savage.
When Johnny Mac is saying, "Oh, Steve was coming to me asking what to do all the time," absolutely, that was strategy. I know for a fact because Steve was constantly asking him inane questions that Steve knew the answer to.
Right.
And he was basically milking information from Johnny Mac the whole time. And the fact that Johnny Mac can't see that, and so many other players couldn't see that, even Vanessa couldn't see that, is, I think, a testament.
Yes, Sweeney. I'm always annoyed when people hype up him cutting Vanessa. It was the right move, but it was a blindingly obvious move. I mean, yes, but unfortunately, we have seen a lot of people not make that move. Most recently, Casey,
I was arguing with people throughout the entire season about that. He knew what Vanessa was up to. He was probably manipulated by her for like a 1 week, maybe 2 at most, and then he was on to the fact
If
that,
the
oh my
video's
God,
low, I
this
can
is a
always
really good player,
raise it.
and I need to stay close to her because I know that will get me far in the game. But at some point, I'm going to make sure I need to cut her. And easily the biggest mistake he makes is throwing that veto at Final Four. Yeah, that's kind of a boneheaded decision.
I don't think so, but I want to talk about that. Go ahead.
I don't think it's cut and dry. What I'm saying, it's his biggest mistake. I don't think it's a terrible mistake, but I think it was a mistake in general, because I think ultimately he's probably in the same scenario either way. He just has a little more ability to convince Johnny Mac or maybe even Liz to take him to the end if he's in the final 3 with those two instead of Vanessa. But yes, so in general, I think Steve definitely does not get the
Why do you
credit
look
he
like
deserves.
you're
I
in
think he
a-
will over time. I think when
a
people start
foggy
to
glass. There we go.
digest the season a little more.
Brent, your take on the Final Four throwing of the veto and why you don't think that's a terrible move?
Well, from Steve's point of view, incorrect as it was, Steve did have a clear strategy behind it, which was, if
So this is
if Vanessa's
November
evicted at
that
4,
the,
she's the obvious big
ranking was
threat,
done.
then I'm
So the
going to
season
go
ended like
to
2 months
Final
prior,
3
so this is
as
very
the biggest
fresh in
threat.
your-
And I
Yeah.
don't
you
want to
guys'
be the
minds.
biggest threat at Final 3. He was convinced that if he went to the Final 3 with Johnny Mac and Liz, that Johnny Mac would look at Steve and say, I don't want to take Steve as much as I like
Liz and
Steve,
Julia
because
also
he's got
going to see them
4
pretty soon.
Freaks and Geeks or
on
whatever the hell they were called on the
another
jury.
television
And if
program.
I take,
what's interesting is that I feel like
Liz, by the
since
same token, she hated Steve. So
um,
not going to want to take him either. That's from Steve's point of view.
since the seasons in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of Liz is underrated
I don't think it's a terrible move.
talk that that people are like, oh, Liz, she's underrated. People underestimate her. She does maybe deserve to win over Steve. I personally, I haven't heard a convincing argument.
I didn't even know this was happening.
Because, Liz has 2 guaranteed votes on the jury.
I guess I'd have to hear the argument, but it doesn't sound like something I'd agree with. Not that I'm saying she's awful or anything, but
Yeah, I mean, like I
Should've
said,
beat Steve.
I feel like it's usually focused on Steve and how he's worse than people think, and then talking about Liz in terms of what she accomplished as a whole with the Oz twins and kind of forgetting that she was Vanessa's tool to be used, and unlike Steve, never really questioned that. Not to mention the fact that she would have taken Vanessa and lost to her. So it's like,
Yeah, not really thinking I'm buying the argument.
The things that Ian did that became endearing, Steve was not. It wasn't possible for him to do those things. But gameplay wise, I don't detract from his win or his ability to win future games because of that.
Austin, I think Austin would beat Liz.
When people say, "Oh, Ian was so much better than Steve,"
for a second there, it seemed like Austin might win the game. And people were really like starting to be like, "Hey, Austin," because I think this is what's happening is that like during the season, because the Austins were getting so far, because Vanessa, they were such a useful meat shield for Vanessa. People were like, "Hey, Austin is a lot better than you think he is," and I was like, "No, that's not what's happening. It's not what's happening." But and so now I think because Liz made it further, that sort of like results-oriented thinking is kind of being transferred to Liz a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Steve Moses, and now we're here at number 9. This person is a female player. I was the highest on her. I had her at number 8. Alex, Brent, and Taran, you guys were all in agreement. You guys had her at number 10. She won by a vote of 9-1. She had 2 HOH wins, 1 Power Veto win. She was nominated 2 times, and that is one of my personal favorites, the great Lisa Donahue. Comes in at number 9. Alex, tell us about Lisa Donahue.
You want to watch that finale? It's hard to watch.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, Lisa is a case of someone who obviously
low.
We talked about it on our kind of seasons rankings. I don't know if we need to go too much into the fact that, Lisa obviously at the beginning of the game is not seemingly – she's almost like, kind of just a generic kind of, why was this person cast almost, not really playing the game that really begins
it was a very different time.
kind of evolve as the game goes on in ways that, I certainly didn't expect.
Shelly
from,
is underrated.
The onset.
I agree. Shelly cool.
I think she's someone that has, slightly,
big Shelly
kind of the first
fan.
winner we've seen that is not.
It took Vanessa squeaking out of a back door to get Shelly evicted.
It's insane how great the BB 17 cast was.
Yeah, if not for that, I mean, I think Shelly goes on for a while.
Winnability. I think we saw, how many times do we need to see guys who look like me, Ian's and Andy's and Steve's, win this game, and see guys like James decide at 6 that they're going to win their way out, and it doesn't happen. How many times do we need to see this before we realize that needing to win a competition means you've already misplayed your hand? You know what I mean? So I think Lisa is the first person on this list that I don't think had any inherent flaw at all. However, I would put her kind of average in most categories. I think she's above average, certainly socially. And
Johnny Mac versus Steve in Final 2. I think it would go to Steve.
It's hard for me to rank her really strategically because I think, she starts the season and ends the season at 2 very different places.
Wild guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I guess who evicts
Vanessa we get to here that I don't see a big glaring reason
Does
why.
that cause Vanessa to get the entire Oz twins?
Yeah, the only thing with
whoever she wants to vote for.
Talking about people who have to win competitions, I mean,
Oz twins go to Steve. Shelly goes to Steve.
Danielle and Jason. That is one point, but
so that's 4 votes right there. I feel like Steve has it.
Socially, she's a very strong.
I would not have been able to handle a Johnny
Taran,
Mac.
What do you think about Lisa
losing
you had her
against losing a jury vote?
Below or ahead of.
That would not have gone over well.
Steve, but you had her
Rob's head would have exploded in a Steve and Johnny Mac final 2.
So, and about having
Literally
to win
exploded.
the final HOH, most of the people we're talking about so far had to win that final HOH. So we're not quite at the point where we're talking about people who were good enough to not have to win it yet, and that's why. I mean, it's definitely a factor. It's a reason why she's down here. But she's still better than other people who also had to win that final HOH. In general, I think Lisa is a better version of Drew. She's kind of bland. She's good looking. She's charismatic. She's very sweet. And when she started the game, there wasn't much strategically going on. However, as we've talked about, she develops her game. She's practically tutored by Danielle Reyes and becomes a very formidable player by the end of it. If she had started out the game as that formidable player, I think I'd have her higher. She'd probably be above Steve at the very least. And maybe even into the next tier. She Drew, Steve, and Lisa top out this next tier I have above the previous one. So the biggest detriment to her game, I think, is that she needed something like Danielle tutoring her to kind of
what did you say,
kick into
Casey
gear
versus
her strategic ability. Without that, I don't know.
Casey versus Steve. You said
Steve.
No, we didn't
Steve is
argue
over
that.
Casey. It's Casey versus
talking about
Ian. I
Ian.
put Casey over Ian.
I think though that second half.
So Lisa's above.
Definitely
I would
impressive.
assume the
I,
Casey.
like,
Yes.
whatever he
above the
did
Casey.
to
Yeah.
get
Lisa
Casey and Danielle
is
to not take
Lisa's
her
in
out
contention
before
for me
to take out
with
Amy
Steve
instead.
and Nicole.
Wow, come on.
Happy to hear it.
And yeah, so that's pretty much where I stand on Lisa.
Okay. Just really quickly, I hear you talking about your tiers a lot. Can you tell me how many tiers you have, Taran? Because I'm a little confused on that. I really
Like
want to know.
tears in the rain. I have all the tiers.
Let's see. I think there's 6 total.
Okay. I heard you say like you're like the upper half of the bottom tier, and I'm like, whoa, is this like the 9 levels of hell or something?
It's
What
hard
are we
to
doing
describe.
here?
It's because there's the bottom 3, then there's the next 3, and then there's another 3, and we're at that 3.
All right, cool. That's cool. I'm not dogging you. I just wanted to know.
I'm trying to come up with a better way to explain where they place, but
okay, I'm very interested in this. Okay.
Yeah, well, let me count them, and then I'll be able to say what numbered tier they are in the future.
I really don't have too much to add. I will say that I think that it's
wants to see your tiers.
to give Lisa credit for anything that might have helped to keep her in the game.
That's been his goal all
Final
along. The last
Four.
3
I think
years,
that
he's just
that
been
was
trying to make
just
me
a big
cry.
mistake from Danielle and Jason. I don't think that Lisa had anything to do with staying in the game at that point.
Now we have it as a sound clip if anybody wants to grab that.
They viewed Amy incorrectly as more of a threat than Lisa,
actually.
and I think Lisa was just the beneficiary of that. I do.
Look at
agree
you
with
staring
with
into your
Alex that
computer.
She, strategically,
Which
she
one?
does have
Trying-
the ability to improve. So that's a point in her favor.
The old you.
I agree with Taran.
Look like
though,
you're
that
reading
it's
your list,
pathetic
trying
that
to
she needed
figure
someone
out
like
your
Danielle
tiers.
Reyes to kick her in the gear in the first place. I mean, you're coming to play a game for $500,000, and you're telling me you need a tutor. Give me a break. I don't know. This is where it gets a little hairy in the rankings because we're looking at people, and if she played today, having watched Big Brother presumably for the last 12 years or whatever, I think she could probably do okay. In fact, she might even win. I think it's a little bit unlucky that she wasn't in the All Stars version because I would have loved to see what she could have done there.
I think that, there's a good chance Lisa Donahue wins if she's on Big Brother All Stars, and who knows with Chilltown and that whole dynamic. But I think with her, I'll
take that.
I hear what you're saying, Brent, but for me, in terms of ranking winning games, that's why her winning game I would have lower than several people. But in terms of her as a player, I think that she's somebody who's very adaptable. She can really go into any season at any time, and I think that she's going to do very well most of the time because people aren't going to see her as a huge threat. You look at somebody like Drew, who Taran said, hey, Drew's Lisa is just a better version of Drew. That's true. And also the fact that if you just look at Lisa, she's just not that threatening compared to Drew. Drew is a big, huge, he's a hulking guy. He's a guy who fits in with, he's one of the bros who you might want to target for physical reasons. Lisa, you wouldn't really want to. And the fact that she just picked up and learned so much in one season really, to me, speaks volumes. And I think that if she were to go back and play, again, if she were to go in a simulator, play 100 seasons against a random field, I think she'd do very well most of the time just because she's so likable and she understands the game. And because of that, that's why I had her at 8, and I wanted to put her higher. I just couldn't. There's just so many.
Do you have a couple additional thoughts on Lisa?
Another one who I think if she played again, she'll probably move up, but I can't in my right mind.
I think she suffers from a more modern Big Brother. I think she benefited from the time period in the current culture of America and the show. And if you want more detailed thoughts, maybe you can find out soon.
Let's move on then from Lisa Donahue. So Lisa comes in at number 9, and we're going to move on to the next person. And if you listen to the Big Brother Season Rankings podcast, you will remember there were several instances where we had a tie. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have a tie for number 7. So we've got two people here. They are locked in, and we are.
This
going
should
to
not have been
debate
a tie. I
which
don't
of
think
these
this is
two
close.
Deserves to earn the number 7 spot, and which person deserves to earn the number 8 spot. The first person on the list is a female player. She was ranked number 5 by Alex. She was ranked number 10 by me. So Alex was the highest. I was.
If you want to
the
listen to
lowest.
this as a
She's
podcast,
credited for inventing the floating strategy, and that is
you
June's
can go to
song.
the
So
link on
June
the
is
Robbers website
the
and
first
download it.
person on the list here. So she won by a vote of 6-1, which
just posted
again,
the
another
link.
one that I didn't remember that she won that convincingly. But yes, she won 6-1, 1 HOH win, 1 Power Vita win, nominated 3 times, voted against 0 times. And the second person on the list is a guy who played Big Brother not once, but twice, not once nor twice, but thrice. And that is Mike Boogie Mallon. He comes in also in a tie with June's song here. I had him the highest. I had Mike Boogie at number 4. Brett had him at the lowest.
Jordan
had him at number
that's
14. So Mike
a little
Boogie
wild.
finished in 8th on season 2. He won Big Brother All-Stars, and he finished in 10th in season 14. So we've got a lot to talk about here. We've got 2 people here. Alex, why don't you talk to us first about June? Why did you have June at number 5?
All right. Yeah. So I think one person that we always hear, this is an underrated player. This person doesn't get their due, Maggie. I think Maggie has become so underrated. She's a bit overrated. And I think June is criminally underrated.
Hey, I agree with that.
I think, especially if you go back and watch a lot of 4, there is
Go
no
back and watch
alliance that
6.
June is not a part of. Even the Three Stooges is adapted.
I mean, I'm not
into the
disagreeing about
Dream
June. I'm
Team
disagreeing
to
about
add
Maggie.
June. It's ridiculous how she's able to essentially play the same game as Andy. She's never really in danger. She's never really being targeted. She never has to win. I mean,
Dippin' Dots.
if you go back and look, she votes correctly every time. She's
Game
never
of the
in, not with
year.
the majority.
Totally irrelevant,
Very
but
much
God of
like
War
the
won
one
Game of the.
game
That's
playing.
very exciting. I'm very
She's
pleased
the
with that.
first
I think it
person to
deserves it.
show that if
The first
you
game I streamed on
take upon
here.
yourself to cook and
Thank you,
cook
Dippin'
well,
Dots.
that
I really appreciate it.
I mean, she really did just kind of like set up some staples in the game that are, seem like common sense, seem very basic, but she was able to really navigate seamlessly. And really, anytime it became close to a sinking ship, she was already, finding another place to jump to. I mean, the girls' alliance at the end, which these people hadn't worked together all game, and she's able to bring it together. I think she shows a lot of instances of kind of the skill sets to, do all the things that you would want.
My
from
June
your
takes
winner
have
or from
never been
somebody
the
that you would have
most-
to back. I like June a lot.
I don't know.
Okay. Now,
Agreed
Taran,
with-
why don't you tell us about Mike Boogie?
because I've always been a little bit
Because
lower
you
on
had
June than
Mike
everybody
Boogie
else,
higher than June.
and then I always get
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
angry
It
looks
actually
when I
was a
talk
very
about that.
difficult choice for me. I think
Well,
the
she's very
tie is
lovable.
pretty reasonable.
Which is
course.
ironic because
Huh.
she was hated on her season.
I know.
Give
I
her a
know.
vote.
I know Brent is not a fan of Mike Boogie, and probably for the reasons I'm about to describe, which is it's actually very difficult to rate Boogie's game because of how inevitably intertwined it is with Dr. Will's game in season 7. It's
I
just
remember
difficult-
actually
difficult to parse
being
out
swayed by
how much of
Brent
this is
on this
Will, how much
podcast
of this
about
is
Mike
and,
Boogie, which might be
they're
the
not
one and
on
only
the
time
same
I've ever
page
been
some of
swayed
the
by
time.
Brent
So
in an argument.
I definitely think there are a lot of instances where Boogie is the one who is actually making solid alliances. He's socializing with the rest of the house. He's getting connections with people like Danielle and James. And Will is kind of the high concept thinker who kind of maps out what they're going to do in the future. So it's difficult to tell. I think the things that you can point to for Boogie's weaknesses are season 2. He obviously had no idea what he was doing. He was the first to come up with the idea of putting somebody up as a pawn, and the first to be on the receiving end of that pawn, then going home. He goes out very early. And then in season 14, we see him essentially get duped by, of course, Dan. He stuck to Frank way too much. His head wasn't in the game, to be fair, but if your head's not in the game when you're playing the game, then that's going to be a detriment to you no matter how you spin it. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm not trying, so this doesn't count. If you're in the game, you're in the game, and I'm going to judge you on it. I think he's an emotional player, too. He gets very cocky. He gets very upset when things don't go his way. However, just the things that occurred in season 7 with Dr. Will.
Just
Oh
Blab.
no.
Too impressive to just say, Boogie's not somebody that is a good.
No,
Am I
keep going, Taran. You had it. You broke up for a sec. Try it again.
Love that moment when you realize that
Yeah, my connection's being
no
a
one,
little weird.
no
Okay,
one
so
can hear you.
Anyway, what they were doing in season 7.
See, again, like that
I think
mattered way
you
too
can't
much
just
to
say
me
he had
at
nothing
the
to do
time.
with it. You can't say it was all Will and Boogie. Boogie was a very essential part of that that whole season, and he does end up winning it. In no small part due to Will's strategy, but he has a lot of worth in that game, and I'm having trouble describing it because it's a hard.
I almost feel like it's not even like there's not even a ton of discussion to be had on season 7.
So where did everybody have Boogie? Like, I want to hear this
So
again.
yeah, so I'll give it to you guys. So let's see. So Mike Boogie Malin was it number 6 for
been
Well,
high
here's
on
what Alex had. So
Boogie.
Alex had June at 5.
I'm usually
I
high on
don't know
him.
about Boogie.
I really
But I feel like every time I
I
talk
really
about
do
him,
have
somebody
these two
talks me
tied.
down
Yeah,
on him.
he has
So
some
it's-
pretty
it
much
works
tied.
perfectly
Mike
for me.
Taran, yes. But
Okay.
anyway, okay. Alex had Mike Boogie at number 6.
Okay.
I had Mike Boogie at number 4.
I'll tell you, I would
Taran
put
had Mike
Boogie over
at
June
number
in
7.
this discussion.
You had Mike Boogie at
I think
number
I've made that clear that I
14.
was a little bit lower
I am
on the June takes.
stunned. I did not realize you guys had him that high. I knew
Yeah,
that they were high,
I put Boogie
but
at 7
I'm
above
Jordan,
June.
I don't know what
He's
the hell
definitely
you're
below
looking
June
at.
for me now.
I really don't. Like, we're
Bring
looking
it to
at
me.
his
Bring it to
body.
me.
We're looking at his body of work.
Well, that's a shame.
Okay? This guy has played 3 times. And as I said, I'm already going to repeat myself on Twitter. He has played 3 times. Twice he's been pre-jury because he was that bad. The only time he won, he was the wingman of a legend. A guy who he had a pre-existing relationship with coming into the house. A guy who he could trust implicitly. And by the way, a guy who he would have willingly taken to the end to
Brent making
lose
so
to
many good
him.
points.
He would have taken Will to the end in Big Brother All-Stars to lose to him, just so he could take the Chilltown brand to the end and then ride off into the sunset. He didn't give a damn about winning at that point. It was only after Will got evicted that then he suddenly said, oh, now I gotta win this by myself. That doesn't look so bad, what are you guys seeing here? Like, are you looking at the Boogie from Rob's podcast? Because I love that guy. Like the Boogie on the podcast is freaking great.
His
Like,
number
I'm
one
like, where was
partner
that
being
guy?
Dr. Will
And by
definitely
the way, Taran, you're wrong. Boogie
definitely
was not
has
fooled by
some
Dan.
influence over the
Boogie
opinion
was
on
fooled
Boogie.
by
I've
fucking Ian Terry.
watched
Ian
All Stars
Terry
probably more than any other
fooled
season
Boogie. So
in
don't give me
rewatches.
this.
And every
Well,
time I
he
come
fell
away and
victim
I'm
to
like,
one of the greatest
oh
wins
wow,
in the
that's
history of
a
Big
pretty
Brother,
good win. And then
Dan.
you look at it more.
He
and it's
fell
like,
victim to Ian, and it was left to Julie Chen to say, "Oh, by the way, bitch, this is the boy who just betrayed you, and let's take a look at his goodbye message." No, he's a terrible player. I think he's a great human being. Like, I love
wouldn't go that
listening to
far.
him on the podcast, but he's just terrible when it comes to Big Brother, and there is no evidence that you can point to that shows why he is a good player that isn't connected to the legend of Dr. Will.
For the record, I want to say when I said
Speechless
Dan,
Jordan
I meant
Parhar.
mostly Dan's kind of design,
I know what you meant.
which is the
But he was getting
Quack
fooled.
Pack,
Dan gets
Ian
credit
the
for
original
everything.
lines. Yeah.
Ian was lying to him, and Boogie did not know. Freaking Ian Terry was lying to him, and he didn't know.
Okay. Well,
You
Yeah,
had
and
given Ian no
actually-
reason
I'm
to betray
kind
him,
of-
though. So you gotta also think about that. Like, why? would
I'm-
this
I'm
be-
swayed.
I already hear the excuses.
Here's
from
my
you.
thing with Boogie,
Wow.
and just in relation to the people I have below him, Boogie is incredibly persuasive. Like you said, you like him on the podcast, and that's because the guy knows how to talk. The guy knows what to say and how to say it to people. The guy is a business owner and a restaurant manager. He knows how to work with people, and he's been doing it his whole life. We even see in Big Brother 2 that he's able to relate
I love
to.
Brent's faces.
What's
Well, see, again, like,
the
this is why Brent is able to sway me, because we're both speaking the same language.
Yeah, when did this relationship change?
I don't know. But like Alex and Jordan are talking about his personality, and Brent is not saying anything about his personality, so he's never going to change their minds. But when he's talking about like his body of work, that sways me because that's what I'm looking at.
He's
Yeah.
very good at seeing other people's perspectives.
It's coming in pretty
He's
clear with
solid
this
when
one in
it comes
particular.
to a lot of the aspects I would like from kind of some, a generic player of this game. I think, the points you make are all valid in that, certainly he probably plays a bit too much of a straight up game, and he kind of expects the loyalty that he is putting out, which is, usually probably to a fault. But I think where he really shines is just his ability to convince people to his way of thinking. And I think that's something that some people just really can't do. And I think that's something that he's as good as almost anyone at.
This is such fan fiction. Where is the evidence of this?
Okay, hold on.
Where is the evidence of him convincing anybody in Big Brother 14? Where's the evidence of him convincing anybody in Big Brother 2? I don't see this.
Okay, let me get a word in here. So I've got Boogie at 4. I saw people in the chat saying I was on drugs. The reason
Fair.
I have Mike Boogie at number 4 is I think this is a guy that we've seen a lot of growth from. I think if we're just looking at Mike Boogie from season 2,
number 5.
no way is he anywhere near any of this.
Yeah, that
He did
means
not play a
he
good
is
game in season 2, but we really
above
did
Andy.
see in
Yeah,
Big
that's
Brother All
what I'm
Stars.
saying.
Mike Boogie evolved. Mike Boogie understands the game.
That's the
He's
are you
very
on
good.
drugs
Yes,
part.
he convinced people to do things. Yeah, I mean, people say, oh yeah, it's all Dr. Will, it's all Dr. Will. It's a lot of Dr. Will, but a lot of it was Mike Boogie. Mike Boogie's going out there with season 6. Mike Boogie's talking to James and Daniel Reyes and convincing them, hey, let's form the Legion of Doom. Mike
'Cause I feel
Boogie's
like
out there,
this happened to me too, where at the start of this podcast, it was like the respect for All Stars bled into Boogie, and I forgot to look at him as like an individual who had a body of work to look at. And I wanted Boogie to be really good because that took the pain away a little bit that Will lost All Stars, right? Like, Daquan says Boogie should be top 5. I did not expect Daquan to be a Boogie supporter, but thank you.
He could have made it a few more weeks. I think Mike Boogie easily could have walked away as the winner of Big Brother 14. No, but he could have. And here's the thing: is we're talking.
I have
about,
Boogie in number 5. Granted, I haven't looked at these in probably a year or
Alex
so.
Put it, we've got one guy. You're putting these people.
I have Boogie at number
out there.
5.
It's a game for your life, and who are you putting your chips on?
But that's
I
just
think
me
that
being
if we
low
put
on
Mike
like
Boogie into a
some of the
random
other
season with
guys,
a random
like
field of
Hayden,
that are
people,
coming out.
he does
Yeah.
incredibly well a lot of the time.
So,
There's a lot of times.
I guess that was a year ago, so not influenced by recent events.
No, and this still has nothing to do with recent pictures or anything like that. I've just always been low on Hayden compared to
very good at
everybody
convincing
else.
people what to do. He works. He's willing to work with all different kinds of people. He's adaptable, and I think that because of that, he can go very far into any season, and that's why I'm so high on Mike Boogie. I'll admit, I'm a Chilltown fanboy. I love Chilltown so much, and that's probably why I have him very high on this list. But that's why I've got Mike Boogie out there. You put Mike Boogie out there in another season with a random field of people, from based on what he's learned so far, and you're telling me he's the 14th best player on this list, Brent, and you're telling me that, let me look at your ranks right now. You're telling me that you're telling me that Big Baller, you're telling me that Rachel, Ian, these people are going to do better than Mike Boogie.
Where did Brent say that he ranked him?
No,
14.
No, get out of here.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Jordan,
Yeah.
stop.
No, I missed that.
For real, can you pause real quick and kick this guy out of chat because he's posting potential spoilers from Survivor.
I remember that.
Whatever this guy, he's just an
Okay,
ass.
so
And it's a false list.
You know what
anyway,
season it was?
So I don't want people to
It
think
was
that happened.
Second Chances.
He's an obvious troll, and people are getting mad.
Okay, hold on.
Can you
Let
see
me,
him?
All 3 of them
I
got
don't know
spoiled.
how to kick this person out here. Hold on.
Oh, it was real spoilers?
Hold
Yeah.
on.
For the
Just
final
write down
3.
his name.
Yeah.
What?
think-
That
Okay.
sucks.
And let's see. He's out of here.
Oh, that
can't
would
believe
not happen
fake
in
Rob
2018
Cesternino
with
would do this.
moderator,
I know.
YouTube moderator Brett's
Okay.
Lucky Slot
So there
channel.
we go. So sorry about that, guys. Anyway, if you guys want to,
How'd you miss it?
Brent, tell
Well,
me,
I wasn't reading the chat as much, and when he said that, I started to look, and the first word in the guy's spoilers where it was like in all caps, spoilers. And so I just immediately looked away, and I was like, nope.
That's annoying.
I see no evidence in the game of what you're talking about. Yes, he's a
See?
business owner. Yes,
Different
he deals
languages.
with people. Yes, I hear him talk on the podcast about all this wonderful stuff and the strategy and working with other people and the strategy behind, what this person should be thinking and what this person might be thinking. But within the game, I see very little evidence of that without the help of a legend. And, he had such an advantage in Big Brother 7 with having a guy who he knew had his back 100%. Didn't have to worry about it. Wasn't even a question. got to go in the house with it. And, from what I hear, Will wouldn't even go in the house without Boogie as his wingman. So you tell me how much of an advantage. You guys talk about
I used to read the chat a lot more when I wasn't hosting. But in this particular moment, I was thinking about what Brent had said and coming to terms with it.
Big Brother
File processing.
To the end,
Yeah,
for
essentially.
a loss and didn't give a shit about it. That's what I have a problem with.
But do we know that for a fact? And also, too, I feel like
you're telling me he's going to cut Dr. Will?
No,
I've
but
I've heard that Will was planning on stepping down for Boogie. That's a rumor that's out there.
If that's true, then Dr. Will shoots down in my ratings.
Yeah, but no, I'm just saying that. Yeah, I think that Will would be. I mean, he said to me, I look at it as a co-win. Batman and Robin. I think it's different when you're talking about with the kind of relationship that they have. I don't know. Yeah, that's a fair point, and I guess that maybe that's something I need to think about. But I'm sorry that I think on his own, I think Mike Boogie he's cutthroat. He's willing to do whatever it takes.
Anytime somebody tells me they were spoiled by a Survivor season, I feel like they lost.
Learned a great
somebody.
deal
Like,
from
I'm
Dr.
so
Will, and I
sorry.
don't think
Yeah.
that we should detract from that. I think that he's an excellent Big Brother player.
I don't even like
that's
knowing
why I've
if
got
a
him
season
so
is spoiled
high.
because then I start
And
reading into
it's understandable why you have him so
people
low, but anyway,
and what they're saying about the season.
Karen, go ahead.
As somebody
Once in a while,
who's
like
kind of
before
in the middle
season, if
here,
somebody's like, "Oh yeah, the season isn't
I'm
spoiled," I'm
kinda-
just like,
I'm
"Yeah,
kinda hearing
perfect."
what Brent
Gonna
is saying.
go with that for the entire time and
I
not let
think
anybody change my mind.
On his own, we haven't really seen him do what he was capable of
That
doing.
was-
in
that
Big
was
Brother
me
7,
admitting
and
I
that kind
got
of
my mind
indicates
changed.
That maybe he's not capable of it. At the same time, I do think what he did in Big Brother 7 was impressive on its own. So there's not a whole, like.
What's with
I
your
think we
connection?
should detract from it. I'm not sure. I have to rethink it a little bit. He
No
might
Ethernet
fall
cable yet?
lower tier. At the very least, I think I might put you ahead of him now.
Oh,
Switching.
yeah.
Everybody in the
You're
vanilla
fading out
rooms are
again.
doing just fine.
Okay, yeah, Brent, Taran, yeah, sorry. Do you want to just check that again? Just say
It was the universe
Sure,
couldn't handle
said
the fact that I got my
was
mind
thinking about
changed by
maybe
Brent.
lowering him
Right.
to a lower tier. I'm not sure I can do that. I think what he did in Big Brother 7 is impressive.
I am
enough
ready to do
be
that
up
now.
there.
He's
I
in a
think
lower tier.
There's enough equity to say he's in that tier, but I do think I'll probably have June ahead of him, where previously I
Well,
didn't.
while you guys beat this conversation to
So-
Yeah,
death,
but to me, that speaks
where are you
to the
mixing in
quality
the
of
remaining
June
BB Can
and
winners?
the lack of
We haven't
I
talked
mean,
about
Kevin
John,
is
Paris,
Kevin
yet.
is barely rankable in Big Brother Canada
Yeah, I got you.
lore.
Sorry about that.
Impossible to rank in Big Brother
Can't
US.
have nice things, people.
This is
Um,
why we can't have nice things. It really
I would
is.
put John in the Lisa, Nicole, Steve
Come into a chat, and the Google Hangout does not, like people can't just post things on
tier.
Google Hangout without, the saying okay.
And
In the future, it might be a better
Paris
to do Google Hangout if we're gonna have
in the
to
same
put up
tier.
kind of
They're all in that same.
Someone's posting spoilers,
Lisa,
but they're
Steve,
not
Nicole,
true, but people are
John,
gonna think they're
Paris.
true, so,
Not
in-
not in that order.
proven to be false. So I don't
My
know what
order
you
of
guys
those
think about.
people are Lisa,
Anyway,
John,
I don't
Paris,
know.
Steve, Drew.
Regardless,
I'm
But
just
Drew
I
wasn't
want
in
people
that
to get
tier.
upset in the chat. That's all.
Yeah, no,
That's
Brent,
just
I appreciate
the
it. But
continuation.
Yeah, sorry, guys. My apologies. This is what you get for listening to a podcast.
I might do.
because I
I'd
know
probably
people
do
like to,
John,
well,
Steve,
people like to mess with me, and why not? But anyway, let's talk about
Paris,
this. So we have this tie. We need
Lisa.
Steve over Paris? You think
who's gonna
so?
be number 8 and who's going to be number 7. So Alex, first out of
don't
the
know.
gate, who do you want? Are you going with June or are you going with Mike Boogie?
I've got June higher, so I'll stick with that.
June. Okay.
I
Brent.
think Paris was a little bit
June.
more
June, by a mile.
consistent.
Well,
I actually
did
think
have
they
Boogie
played
ahead
kinda
of her. I
similarly.
do want to briefly touch on June. I think I do think she was a pretty good player.
It's tough.
She didn't have a whole lot of influence on the game in the beginning, but she did well to survive. She played very well week to week. I think long-term strategy was kind of her weakness. I don't know why she gets rid of G at Final 5. That just seems nuts to me, and I haven't seen a good explanation.
My
for it.
connection is so bad.
It kind of set her up
Yeah,
for that
it's-
position. Competitions had to fall a certain way for her to get to the end.
That's something else.
Other than that, though, I think definitely played well to.
Do you remember having such a bad connection?
The house that were going against each other.
It was pretty rare
She was caught
in
at
general.
what she was doing, but it didn't matter
Aaron, your
because
audio is buggy again.
it's of who she is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to maybe re-enter and then come back in. 'Cause it keeps
So
doing
Taran,
that now.
Taran, I'm gonna boot
Bye.
you and then just come back.
Whoa.
I left before he could boot me, so he accidentally booted Alex.
Okay.
Girl, bye.
Such a jerk.
Sorry, dog. Happens. Let's see if Taran can come right back in here. That sounds better so far.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, yeah. The new
I'm moving all
hashtag,
over the place.
Lav loves Brent.
there we go. But anyway, so Taran, you're gonna go with June as well.
Yes.
Okay, so we've
Okay.
got so it's gonna be we've got 3 votes for June, 1 vote for Mike Boogie.
Why are people down on
So
Jillian's
June
game?
takes the
Well,
cake,
she wasn't
so
supposed to win.
Mike Boogie comes in at number 8, and much to the chagrin
There
of
was a
me
couple of
and
people on the jury
June
that
comes in number 7.
despised her.
Brent is happy.
Or at least
this is
one.
good, and we
Yes.
will move in to number 6. Who is now we're moving up here, guys. We're getting into
But
elite
I'm with
company
you,
here.
Duquan.
This
I
next winner is
didn't
one
quite
of
get
the
it
best in my
at
opinion.
first.
He's excellent. He's only played 1 time Big Brother, but he's also made an appearance on another show that many of you watching this or listening to this are very familiar with. And he won by a vote of 4-3. It was very close. He went ahead of household 4 times, power veto 1 time, nominated once, which is still it's pretty amazing.
I forgot
but
Hayden
he
fell to
kind of owes
6.
that, I guess, to the alliance that he built, the Brigade, and that is the great Hayden Moss comes in at number 6 from season 12. Taran was the highest on Hayden. He had him at number 5, and Brent was the lowest. He had him at number 9.
I have Hayden
But
at
let's
7.
go to Alex. Alex, what do you think about Hayden Moss?
Yeah, Hayden is a great player. I mean, we have only seen him play Big Brother once, but I think we got a good amount of Hayden in Survivor too, seeing what he can do. In certain situations, seeing how he really fights, to the last. I thought that was really.
It's funny that
something
you
we saw
mentioned
from Hayden in
the
Survivor. We didn't get a
Ian
chance
being
to
good
see
at
from him in Big
competitions
Brother.
thing,
That
because I have
really is
Kevin
something I'm
ranked
looking
right
for
below
when I'm trying
Ian.
to pick someone.
Right below Ian.
Is, when I'm
Yes.
ranking
I'm not
players
very
and
high
their
on
ability,
Kevin.
I think
But below
never
Ian.
say die attitude is big for me.
That's
I
not
think,
very high. That's very
certainly,
low.
He's one of
Yeah.
those people kind of like Lisa, where I don't see glaring
Kevin's social
weaknesses.
game is,
He doesn't really have major
drags him
flaws.
down
His
for
social
that.
game was amazing. He won unanimously.
The first person I have above
'Cause of the
average in all my
competitions.
categories.
I mean, it doesn't matter if he wins. He's always going to win unanimously against Karen.
level player at
And half
I
the
don't
cast
think
and
there's
half
anything
the
that
jury
Hayden's
was like
not
his
at
best
least a
friends
6 or
from
7
real
out of
life.
10
So
at.
Sure.
If you're looking at like the back of his Big Brother stat card, you know what I mean?
Many
Like
tried.
the same was true of Ika, but she would have lost
Really
unanimously
not,
in
like,
basically
right
every
up in the
scenario.
most elite tier is that certainly
Kevin is really good at hiding in
once, and
bathrooms
when we saw him
statistically.
play, we saw him kind of
yes, he is.
not deal with adversity. We haven't really seen
Kevin's
Hayden
really
ever
good at
play
hiding
Big
from the
Brother
top of my
behind.
winners
The
ranking
only
list
thing
as
we saw
well.
that was close to it was when Captain Kosher stands up and outs his relationship.
I think there's a
with,
massive
Kristen, and he doesn't really handle that
overstatement
very well.
of
Like, I
of
did
Kevin's
go back and I watched
weaknesses
that and I'm like,
because of
you
a
know,
couple of
Hayden
mistakes that he
doesn't
made.
react very well in the moment, and I think now we see kind of him play from behind in Survivor, and he does much better. And I wonder if maybe that is growth and maturity on Hayden's part. But I think he's someone that in any given season is always gonna he's almost never going to be targeted first, because even though he is physical, he's very warm and very friendly and very easy to get along with. So he's just not going to ruffle or rustle feathers, if you will,
wow.
to do a callback from
How
that very
timely.
season, right?
Right.
But I think it really is. It's he's a guy that he's one of these guys that we can talk to about like where's the weakness, right?
Yeah, I see Hayden as the pinnacle of the Drew archetype. He is everything Drew is, and also a great strategist, and also very persuasive in ways that Drew never was. Hayden has a very good long-term strategy approach to the game. He's the one that recognizes, hey,
Hayden had a
that's
showman.
probably
She
a
was
little
out,
smarter than I am. So why don't we just
before it
cut him
was really
now
important.
before he has a chance to do anything crazy? He's the one who has the power to do it. He's in the middle of Enzo and Lane. He always kind of has the most power within the brigade. And obviously the brigade just dominates its season. It was incredible to watch, almost to the point where a lot of people thought it was boring. And we did see Hayden play in Survivor, and I think that also increases.
This is weird. I feel
his
like you guys aren't
value as a
talking about the
player,
winner of
because
Big Brother.
we saw him
12,
do very
Enzo.
well in Survivor. He played very well
Talking
pre-merge,
about somebody who
and
didn't
then
win.
after the merge, he was just one person flipping, or a rock being drawn a different way away from potentially winning the game. So I'm very, very high on Hayden.
Where do you fall in
do
the
agree with
brigade
Alex that
versus level
Probably
6?
the biggest detriment is that we haven't seen a whole lot of how he handles being not a brigade, essentially. We saw him do well on Survivor, but Survivor is a very different game, and ultimately he loses Survivor. So I'd love to see him play Big Brother again.
I mean, I think level 6 faced a lot more adversity.
How do I get out of this situation? Apart from that, though, I think he's definitely
Refresh my memory.
I mean, it's kind of like Derrick versus like Will. Like level 6 did a lot of really great things, but Brigade never had to because they were so dominant.
No, yeah, I'm with you on Hayden. I think that his equity on any season is very high just because.
And I wouldn't even call it luck that they were so dominant because they were they barely won any HOHs. They just controlled everyone else's HOHs, which level 6 did do on occasion, but level 6 lost a few people here and there.
But I feel like a lot of times
they just made them stronger every step of the way.
Passed into one of those lines, or people would pull him into one of those because they want Hayden. People like him. He's a valuable asset to a team, to an alliance, and I think that more often than not, if he's going into a random season, he's going to end up into one of those alliances, and he's going to be in a good spot. Brent, you had him at 9. Why'd you have him a little lower than we did?
Level 6 goes into the jury phase
Wes
with Winston and Rachel
saying,
still in the game.
Don't we have the same issue of not seeing adversity with Derrick? It doesn't seem to affect his ranking as much as it does Hayden. And I think that's fair. I'm not really looking at adversity so much as I think I question Hayden because I feel like he was the beneficiary of a groupthink alliance. Matt was and Enzo, to his credit, were the original brigaders, so to speak, to pull that thing together. And I feel like Hayden was just one of a few at that point. I don't think that I think that he benefited from a season where Brendan and Rachel drew so much attention away from anybody sniffing out the brigade. And I think the chances of something like Brendan and Rachel happening in a season are not good. So I would like to have seen what that season looks like without the magnet of attention that is Brenchel being there.
Yeah. I want to quickly add to that. That's something I credit Matt with, and probably discredit Hayden with, because Hayden was on board with getting rid of Brenchel, but Matt was like, why get rid of these people? They're great for our game. And
smoke screen. That's right.
Yeah. So I think but again, Hayden is the one that realizes that Matt's, like I said, probably a little smarter than him and ends up causing Matt's downfall. So yeah, keep going.
Well, no, I said pretty much everything I needed to say. I give him credit. He's a great social player. He's a fun guy. Strategic acumen is fair. Physical prowess, and as far as these Big Brother Carnival games go, is good. I mean, there's really nothing that he isn't good at. I think is fair to say. But I just, like I said, I don't think that. I think a lot of what benefited him in Big Brother 12 wasn't necessarily coming from him. It was coming from other people.
Yeah, and anyway, I'm with you. I think we can move on from Hayden.
I think Hayden is
solid player,
a player with very, very few flaws, which is very rare.
And this person was part of probably I would say probably the most hated alliance in the history of Big Brother, but at the same time, she was the leader of said alliance. She was the creator of the cult of Cappy. She won Big Brother 6. She only had one HOH win.
I'm not trying to put out negative feelings about Maggie's game.
Nominated 4 times,
agree with
but
the
managed
sentiment
to
that,
get out of
I think
it.
there was a point, and I think we've gotten past that. There was a point where I felt like she was just like, people were talking about her and being like the top 3, top 4 for like a brief period of time. That was too much.
Maggie,
Before Hayden, I think she was top 4.
Probably a very controversial figure.
I'm not talking about that far back. I'm talking about like the time you guys were doing this.
Strategically,
I think top 4 is a bit much.
That was able to pull together,
considering she almost lost the jury vote.
Control them in a way that we've kind of only seen from maybe like Boston Rob in Redemption Island. The way that she used Cappy's eviction
so slick
to manipulate
with her in-alliance manipulation and out-alliance
Cappy, we have to do things for Cappy, and she definitely manipulated her alliance. The getting Howie to go after James and Sarah, nuts. And if you go back and watch season 6, you can see all the way through the season, she is speaking very strategically in the diary room. She's talking about what she's doing. She's
right from the go. If you watch season 6 with the idea of let me track Maggie's game, you will see it throughout the whole season, like right from the beginning.
She was a part of creating it to begin with. You can say, yeah, maybe Howie's easy to manipulate, but I mean, it wasn't just Howie. It was also Rachel. And, you know, the fact that it goes through and the fact that she was able to manipulate everybody on her alliance, I think all the way through the season, she was almost always in control and one of the more dominant wins, I think.
Yeah, I mean, really I guess there were times where, and season 6 is a season that was very back and forth, and, you know, but really, she was in control of that alliance as soon as Kathy goes out. I mean,
Marietta wants to know, would recent pictures lower Hayden's placement? No, not in terms of game.
You had her at 5, even though, and that's the highest of all of us, yet she still ends up at 5 here on this rank. So talk to us about your thoughts on Maggie. Why'd you have Maggie at number 5?
This is the tier where the top 5, where I'm really looking at who can move hearts and minds. You know, it's not just, are you a good player? You know, it's not just, can you adapt to the social ramifications of the house? It's, can you get
you can talk about it
you when it's not even in their best interest? And this bitch has it. I mean, she knows how to work these people. It's a cult. You know, it's similar to Derrick in Big Brother 15 or Big Brother 16. You don't even consider getting rid of her. It's just not something that's even an option at that point in the house.
If I can praise a drug dealer's game
to get rid of her in the eyes of the alliance, you know, I love that she's able to pull that off. I feel like that people's general distaste for her and the friendship sort of brings her down in their eyes, and I don't feel like it should. I feel like she's a great winner. I feel like she knew exactly where she was at the game. She positioned herself appropriately to make sure that there were other people who were more combustible around her to protect her. And I love the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be, but I cannot find another winner who did not even make part 3 of the final HOH. Like, she's sitting there on the sideline.
Very rare.
Either one of them can evict her. Neither one chooses to, and she ends up winning the game. So, I mean, like, it's just, I don't know. Andy was on the balance beam. So somebody in the podcast is saying Andy. So
did it happen recently?
Andy was on the balance beam. So
I'm trying.
I'm not sure. I feel like she might be the only one still.
No, Derrick didn't win part 3.
He didn't win, but he was.
He's talking about people who weren't even in part 3.
They weren't even in it. Yeah, they're off on the chair on the bench. I think
you're right. I think you're right, Brent.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Like, she doesn't even have any currency at that. She doesn't even have any currency to be able to.
I think she's still the only winner to not be in part 3 of the final HOH.
And yet she's still getting to happen what she wants to happen.
I'm trying to think, but nobody else comes to mind.
You cut me, you ain't winning, you know? And she got her to cut Janelle, even though that's not what Yvette wanted to do.
Oh, yeah, and there's even one point I'm pretty sure Janelle, like, nominated Maggie, and then she decided to take Maggie off and put up Yvette. Like, I don't know, I like, just stuff like that. I mean, they had a clear shot. Okay, here's the leader. Let's get rid of her. But no, okay, we'll get rid of Jennifer instead because she's the one who got Kaser, even though it's Jennifer. What's Jennifer going to do? But Alex, what do you think about Maggie?
Jennifer.
Do you think if we're looking at Maggie,
Jennifer,
second go, do you think
you'll
she does
forever
well
be hated
without the friendship surrounding?
in my.
Am I the lowest on Maggie at 8?
You are the lowest, I believe, on Maggie. You
14-year-old heart.
I had her at 7, and Taran had her at 6.
Okay, so when we're talking about Maggie, obviously, I think she's the first person we get to that I've given a 10 rating for on anything, and it's in social implementation. Because, I mean, what a poker face. Stone cold. I mean, Maggie is absolutely capable. I mean, she can lie to you as well as anyone I've ever seen play this game, and it's really hard to read Maggie. I have her slightly below average in terms of social skills. Here's the thing. Yes, she controlled half the house. The other half hated her. And
I mean, I love Paris. I wish
Johnny
Johnny had won.
There were plenty of moments where it should have or could have.
I hope Johnny wins the Big Brother Canada season. It's so much fun to talk about.
I feel like the legacy of Big Brother Canada would be entirely different if they just got like one top tier winner.
And that would just force her to do more work than someone else would have to do.
I was ready. I was ready to
but I talked about Jordan's,
get those Johnny arguments going.
Inherent likability and how that's just something that's hard to learn. Maggie doesn't have inherent likability to me. Maggie is someone that comes off
Tim
as
would not
very
have been.
cold, very gruff, very matter of fact, and that's not someone I personally would want to work with. I would actually gravitate away
In
from
my
someone like that
opinion.
because I would just expect someone
Where
that
would you have
cold
had
and
Tim
calculating
if
to
not
betray
for
me.
the
I would never put
Obviously,
stock
the way
in
that
someone
things
like
went down at
Maggie
the
because
end.
she just doesn't
mean,
seem like the person.
Take
who's
away
gonna
the fact that he
take the
basically
time to
rage
really
quit
get to know you,
the
really
game,
That's what I'm
appreciate
saying.
you.
Take that away.
Seems
which is a
fun.
massive
Really
fault in
does.
itself.
That's my only knock on Maggie.
He'd probably be the best
But
Big
I
Brother
think
Canada
that-
winner, but
I-
he'd
I
still
hear
be
you in what you're saying, but
it'd still be
it
hard to
worked
crack
in
that
It would be-
so
it would be
into the
top
higher
five.
tier. Yeah.
right? And I think with Maggie, she's a nurse, so I think that in her job, I think that she's kind of has to.
Because you also have to remember, like, he
put on that
benefited
charm,
massively
because
from
people
the
probably
fake
she's
double
used to
eviction.
Dealing with stress,
I like
and
calling
how
that a
to
rage quit.
remain positive in those situations. Now, I saw someone in the chat say that they saw Maggie in Vegas and she was running away from all of the fans. So who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, that doesn't speak too good to social adaptability, right?
But
Maggie is
Yeah, Tim does
somebody who
a lot
makes
of
it
really
work,
impressive
even though
stuff,
she's not
but-
likable. And if anything, she makes it work for her that she's not
It's,
likable because
Like, it was one of those things where,
that's
like,
kind of one of the aspects
I felt like a lot of
here's a flaw in my game.
Tim's things
I'm not
that were
attracted because
impressive
I'm
were
not
like
likable, and
through the edit, where
and
like
that's
I remember when the
a
edit was
lot
making it
of
seem like he was
people
controlling the
do
brothers'
so,
nominations,
I
when
don't
in
think
actuality,
it's
like,
because she turned
he
into
influenced them to do something that was really bad for him, just
Just
because he could. He was just like, I'm going to sway them into doing this. And it was like terrible for his game. And then eventually he was like, maybe not. And then it freaked them out. They were like, why are you going against what you just said for us to do? And, it was just like, it's all over the
same way
place.
that Vanessa
Yes.
couldn't schmooze, but Vanessa could manipulate.
Agree.
So I do think it's definitely a disadvantage that she doesn't have it in her skill set, but not so much that I think she goes below some of these other winners.
Agreed. Yeah, I just think it's one card that's not in her deck that is in the deck of some of the people we're talking about above her.
yeah, I'm with you guys there. Let's.
So if you redo
I
these
think we can
right
move on to
now,
Maggie. I think
Maggie's
we're all
staying in the
agreement
top
here.
5 for you?
Maggie's a good player. She's
Probably.
good.
She was number
I'm
6 for
getting
me.
ripped in the
Oh.
chat room because I just brought up her job as a reason why she's
Hayden was
good.
5.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Hey, look at Derrick. People talk about how great Derrick
And I
is
would
'cause he's a
maintain that.
cop. I mean, hey, I think that can work. But regardless, we won't need to talk about Maggie. And if, in case you didn't already realize, I am an idiot. I think we all learned that from Big Brother Canada 3. So you shouldn't be surprised from hearing my
Oh, Jordan.
analysis on anything for that matter.
Oh,
But
so hard on
let's move
himself.
on to number 4. And this is a guy who got a ton of hate on his season for, I don't know why. I don't know
Who
why.
could it be?
I don't know why he got a lot of hate on
It's
his
Will,
season.
right?
It didn't really, yeah. I don't know why. It didn't really make sense. Maybe it's because of the season around him. Who knows? This guy has been
feel like people have
referred to
lightened
as
up a bit
rat
on Andy.
floater. He is probably one of the best strategists in the history of Big Brother. He is got an incredible social game, and that is the great Andy Herren, ladies and gentlemen. Andy comes in at number 4. Brent was the
Correct
highest on
spot.
Andy. Brent had Andy all the way up at number 2. Number 2, Brent. And I had Andy.
Such a
Number
shame.
2.
I
man.
thought I had Andy high. I
He,
didn't. I had Andy
closes
the
out his
lowest. I had him
game.
at 5. And
Enters
we had him at number 4
the top
with
3
Alex and Taran.
of Big Brother
But Andy
winners,
Herren,
only
I'm
to
a
be
huge
knocked
fan
down
of
to number
him.
4 the
Brent,
next
tell
year.
us why
I know,
Andy
right?
is the second
It's,
best player
It's rough.
in the history
brutal.
of Big Brother.
I just was amazed by his game, and it's very hard for me to separate, Andy the player from Andy's winning game. But in some respects, they're one and the same. Like, I feel like he could pull this off in multiple seasons if people didn't know anything
longer
about
the,
him coming in.
Sole
He
LGBT
knew how to
representative
position
of the
himself
Big Brother
well in a
winners.
house, and he knew when to jump ship when he needed to jump
Yep.
ship. I love the fact that he just effortlessly cut Helen,
Effortlessly.
cut Amanda and McCrae when he needed to. He would have cut Spencer at the end. It just it speaks to him as a
Shout
player.
out to Amanda Zuckerman,
People
who finally had her
wanted to
baby.
vote for him. I feel like they liked voting
didn't
for
realize
him.
we
I feel
were-
like that's a point in his favor. His
She's been
play
pregnant
in
for,
the
like,
second
Judging
double
how long
it
eviction
took
where
her.
he's able to somehow manipulate 2,
It's been a while.
from my perspective, relatively smart
Man, it's
people,
taken so long,
at least
Amanda.
replacement level in terms of Alyssa and McCrae, into thinking that each other had betrayed
Oh my God.
Amanda and not him.
I
Was
thought
just
Amanda Zuckerman died. Yeah,
one of
remember
the
when
most amazing
Andy
Oh,
announced
yeah.
that one?
Big Brother history. I can't even wrap my head around the fact that he pulled it off and maintained a straight face. Like, I feel like if I would have tried that,
You know, now that
would've
I think
broken
about it,
cover at one point.
I
You know,
feel
would've
like
been
people have not
"What
lightened up on
happened to
Andy
me?" Like,
because
he kept
I
going,
still
kept
see
going. I
people
feel
in
like
the Big
fact
Brother
that the
subreddit
level of
like,
event actually helped him because it,
well,
at the time,
this
it was
isn't
so
Andy
bad.
Herren
He
levels
had time
of
to think and it
like
came so quickly
that
before you
happened,
even do
like
it.
not
Taking
believable
control of the
story,
game and you didn't even know
but
what the hell
like
happened.
because people were so up in arms about this
This
story
is
that he
gonna get a little
told where he
controversial,
saw his
I feel
season
like
being
some people
played
on
through
the
the window
panel
of
are
somebody's
going to talk
apartment as he
about
walked by.
some people
They're like,
who
that could never happen in a million
were
years.
able to
Like,
extricate
what
themselves
are you
from
talking about?
that
I see
adversity.
people watching weird shit
I hold
all
that
the
against
time.
them. If you got
It's
into
one of my favorite
adversity,
running storylines
that's
on
your
Twitter.
fucking
When
fault. Like,
anytime
you
Andy
need to,
tweets out
like,
a story,
man up and
how
own
long
the
it's going to
fact
take
that
for the
you
first
were the
response
one
to
who
be,
caused
that didn't
adversity.
happen.
Andy never faced that. Even when his enemy won HOH and Alyssa, he managed to avoid detection and got Aaron out of the house at that point, and it was never even considered that Andy might be the one who was evicted that week. I love the fact that Andy was
That was a
never,
great Reddit post.
ever caught with his pants down in the house, with the small exception of when Alyssa surprised him and said,
I did not see
I want to
Casey's
keep
new
Amanda
tattoo, but I
now.
heard about it.
And he's like,
now I'm going to go look
shit.
for it.
And then he's like, and he fixed it. Like, it
Let me
was
guess, it says
amazing.
level 6.
So I love the fact that Andy was never ever caught with his pants down in the house. He was just a master at the social dynamics of the house. And like I said, people wanted to vote for him at the end.
Oh my
It wasn't a
God.
grudging vote. I think they liked
What?
voting for Andy as their
Casey's
winner
new
of their
tattoo.
season. And so I put him at
Is a
number 2,
monster.
ahead of a few other people.
It's like from her elbow
Taran, what do you think about what Brent just said about the
to,
adversity
like,
thing? Do you agree with him?
Is that a real
middle of her
tattoo?
arm. Yeah.
That's not a real
I don't,
tattoo.
I don't agree with him. I
No,
think
100%
a
is. She
lot of
just had
Big
it
Brother
done.
is luck, and sometimes you are put into a cast that you is just naturally going to be against you. Sometimes you
Level
you
6.
have one
She literally
person
has
who's
Tyler
not,
tattooed on her
you
arm.
know, the closest with you, and they win HOH. Or sometimes
That's a real
any number
tattoo.
of random things, twists,
Crazy.
anything can happen, and you'll face
She has
adversity
her
because of it.
Big
And
Brother
most of the time,
statistics
you are going to face adversity. I
tattooed on
do
her
agree
arm.
that Andy's a case. I think unlike
5
Derrick,
vetoes.
where Andy actually, as you said, he did face some adversity
Let's
and he overcame it.
go.
So I don't hold it against Andy as much that he didn't face adversity. I actually hold some other things against Andy, although I am very, very high on Andy.
Oh my goodness.
I think the biggest detriments to his
BB20
game
champ.
are in the first half. And I
And,
mean,
like-
we're comparing him now to the top 3 other winners of
So
Big Brother of all
she
time.
said-
so these are very, very,
I'm on her
very
story.
nitpicky
It says, I
things,
can't wait
but
to finish
in
the
the first
sleeve.
half of the game, it was
So I
more
wonder
week
what the
to
rest of
week,
the
and it
sleeve
was
is
more
gonna be.
Okay,
survival
it's
than
if
it
it's
was,
part of a sleeve,
established long-term plan.
Yeah, but it's
It's
and then the
manageable.
second thing is
how
he
like that's
benefits
like
greatly from the
I feel like a
returning
sleeve
juror,
usually has like
especially the
different
fact
kind of
that it's Judd
images
and the way that things play
worked
out
around each
with,
other.
Alyssa winning that HOH.
What is this gonna have
Judd
like
does not come back
Rachel's
in
head on the side and Tyler's head on the bottom,
a tougher position
Angela
where,
on the top.
As long as the whole sleeve is well designed,
like
like
had
it can
McKay
hide
and
some
Amanda
weird
at that
weird
point,
stuff.
because there's not a lot of people left and there's not a lot of bodies to win HOH and
I,
make those targets, and he doesn't have
I'm
as many
happy she's
people to
happy.
support him when he does so.
Love
So
Casey.
because of that, I have him a little bit lower than my third person
I can't stop staring at it.
in general.
Interesting. Okay, Alex, any
what are the
thoughts
2
on
buttons?
Andy Herren and where he's
In the
ranked
middle.
here at 4?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, right, there's a bit more of a gap between 5 and 4 than there is between 4 and 3. I think, once I got to, it's really the top 4, and I was trying to figure out where they go. And then, it really is kind of a gap.
Crazy.
I have Andy as like, basically excellence in kind of the strategic categories and, like a 10 out of 10 in social. And I have Derrick flipped, like excellent in social and 10 out of 10 in the strategic areas. You know what I mean? So for me, Andy, his Twitter profile.
Oh, speaking of
says,
Big Brother players who have Big Brother tattoos,
a
Talking
very
about Andy.
effective Slytherin masquerading as a Hufflepuff. And I think that says it all right there. Andy wants you to think that he's just so unassuming, so innocent, and he projects it. I mean, look at the
like
t-shirts
Andy's.
he was wearing in
It's
the
not
house. The little heart where he's like
gigantic
hugging the
game
rib cage, the
controller.
little smiley shirt.
I
all
don't
the
think that
little-
was by his own choice.
No. They gave him all these little kid clothes,
Yeah.
but he owned those clothes for them to pick them out. You know what I mean? Like he had a lot of like very, there's a lot about Andy that crafts this narrative that I'm not anyone to ever worry about. You know what I mean? And not only that, this guy is not only someone you really need to worry about. This guy has an improv background, so he's capable on the fly. this guy is a communications adjunct professor, so he is very good with his words. This guy has all the skills you would want to have for the game in the form of someone you would never expect to have any of the skills for this game. And that's awesome. I mean, that's exactly what you want, I think. And really, to me, the only thing that keeps him from being like the perfect player is just, like a couple things here and there where I just wonder if he would rub certain people the wrong way at certain times. And I just, it's the most minimal knock. It's just the only thing that separates him from a total, as Dan says, someone with a future selling ice to Eskimos. I think, Andy is as good as anyone that's not basically a god of the game. And I think that's the highest compliment I could really give.
Yeah, Andy is, he's just on the cuff. He's so close. He's just almost there, but he's
So I did do
he's
a
close for me. He's played such a
another
great
Big
game.
Brother winner rankings.
To any season with
I think
any
before last
player,
season with
and I
Dom and
think he did
Colin.
well every single time,
Oh, yeah.
really. So
And
I would definitely. I had Boogie at 4 and Andy at 5.
the hipster take there was that Andy was the number one pick.
Oh, yeah.
He's a phenomenal player. He's elite.
It didn't actually go through, but
Van Giesling was on,
it
Robert
was
Bonacci
considered.
during season 15, and there was talk that, hey, if Andy wins, he's
Colin
gonna
Stone
win
very
the
high
game,
on Andy Herren.
and scoffed
Mhm.
at that, but I don't think that he should be scoffed at. I think that Andy is an elite winner. He played a phenomenal game.
That was also a very good
For some reason, everyone
podcast.
just hated him, and I don't know
If you
why.
like this sort of thing and you're interested in
Do you
more
know
of
why?
it,
Like, why?
I would recommend it a lot.
Well, I
The
think
being
Dan-
mired in controversy didn't help.
Well, in Dan's case, he didn't watch the feeds, and I think a lot of it has to do with the edit he got.
I also think that Dan really puts a lot of stock of the entertainment. Dan likes the pizzazz of the TV show.
I assume,
like the wheeling and dealing and the
I know the answer to this,
what's
but
behind the
I guess
curtain kind of
you would
stuff.
never be able to
He's
really
all about that and giving a good
convince
show
yourself
to
to
the people
put
at home.
Morgan
Andy
or
can get
Marissa
too
into
far
the
with that. Like,
these
You can
rankings.
get a lot of confessionals where he's masterminding.
I mean, Morgan can't.
Yeah, well,
But
according to Andy, he
you
was
could,
given
like,
those kinds of
think about
confessionals and he
Marissa.
didn't air them very much.
She would be
Which,
bottom. tier.
I personally believe him, but if I take his word for it, I have to take a lot of people's words
It's
for
tricky
it. So,
because
um,
she didn't
but
want to
in
win the
general,
game, yet
I do think
the
I think a
entire
lot of it
game
has
she
to
was
do
like
with,
involved, gaming.
the way that
She was
he
like
feels about
reluctantly
people.
involved.
Her
Like
finger was on the pulse
And
of
he was very
the
closely
majority
tied
of
with
it.
Amanda for a really
Her social
long
game
time.
was.
And then when he finally breaks from Amanda, he does it by screwing over Alyssa.
She
the
tried.
the most popular house guest. So
But
I
then,
think it really
the
just
very
comes
end.
down to the way that he was aligned in the house and his association with the most hated and most liked house
Amon, you
guest
missed,
at the
you
time.
just
I don't
missed
think
us
it had
freaking
as
out about
much
the
to do with
tattoo.
controversy as it did other players that season.
I think it also hurt him a little
I-
bit that he grew,
I did
he
not
came
believe-
of
I couldn't
age on
believe
Big
it was
Brother in
real.
the age of Twitter, and he really dumped on Alyssa, America's favorite. Once she was, especially once she was out
Hi,
of the
Jordan.
house, like that. I love him as a winner. I have him ranked 2 on my list, but that didn't do him any favors from America's point of view, and I think he would own that. It didn't help his cause.
But good on him for being able to wait. I mean, he was feeling these feelings for Alyssa for weeks and didn't vocalize them until she was out of the house. And he's talked about it, how it was cathartic for him to just get that out once she was gone. Because, I mean, good on him. Like those, I'm the kind of person where I can only build up so much and then I'm just going to probably explode.
Yeah.
Andy never exploded until it was safe to do so.
And another thing that
Just
goes
be
under
quick.
another
go
thing
ahead.
that goes underreported about the whole bashing thing, because people get really upset about it, is that
Man, we
bashing
really felt
people
the
and
need to,
gossiping and stuff. I mean, that's
defend
a
Andy.
really popular, bond forming thing. You
It's a
bond
pastime.
exactly. You bond over attacking other people, and it helps glue you together with the people that you're with. And especially if they're gone already, then it's just like, oh yeah, we hate this person and it's us and it's not me.
Yeah, how
and
long
it's not
until
you,
Tyler
it's
gets
us,
a
and we hate this person.
Angela tattooed on
And
this?
I think it's
Yep.
really underreported how effective that
Polycalifever
is as a
style.
strategy, because people just see it as mean-spirited, and I don't think it necessarily is. I don't think it's a maybe a necessary strategy, but if you have it there, why not use it?
Yeah, and I'm, another thing is I'm someone that likes to talk
feel like
about
there's probably
movies
a
and
lot
Game
of
of
Big Brother
Thrones and
winners
stuff
who
all
have
day. And when you're in the Big Brother house, there are copyright
Some
issues.
ink on them.
So if you can't talk
Besides
about
the
the
ones
stuff
that we
you
already
want to
know.
talk
I mean,
about,
I'm not
you might
anti-ink,
find yourself
but
resorting to talk about the things you're allowed to talk about, like people who have already left the house.
I'm anti whatever that
Yeah,
was.
So I just wanted to really quickly say, so Jordan, you had him at 5, Alex and Taran, where did you have Andy at?
They had him at
4.
4.
4, 4. Okay, cool. All right. So 2, 4, 4, 5. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and you know
What
what?
about
Just on
5?
second thought, I mean,
Jordan?
he's close. I mean, I'd be willing to put him at 4.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and also
because he had Boogie at 4. Right.
just to touch upon what Taran was saying, I totally agree that is a thing. With as somebody who has played Big Brother, I know for a fact that when I was gone, that happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
People talking about me big time. And when I called people out on it after, they're like, no, I never did. And I don't know, and I'm like, dude, I know you did it. I don't really care. It's a game, whatever. I did
Oh, look
the
at this
exact same
asshole
thing when I
on
was there.
Twitter.
But it's effective. It works.
In response to me and Caitlin. Glad to see y'all getting along. Was just a few months back he was worried he'd need a restraining order after the way he joked about you on his morning updates. Seems to be a cool guy. Wish he'd stay away from Rob and Brent.
Maybe not quite, depending on
Fuck you.
but I think the consensus top
All
three,
around.
is who is left for us on this list. And we've got 3 people here. We have
wanna see, like,
2 people that have
name and
played the
avatar
game
to this
twice,
tweet.
and we have 1 person that has played the game once. And we are going to start with number 3.
Love a good
Number
Taran
3
F-bomb.
on the list is somebody who Brent had at number 1 overall, first place. I had this person at number 3. Alex had this person at number 3, and Taran also had this person at number 3. So it was a 3-way tie, or there was 3s across the board for that. And because of that, this person came in 3rd.
Well, he's
And
retired
this person
now.
arguably,
He
I mean, a lot
loves
of
it.
people say this person played first
Him and
game.
his 2
He
small
really did.
fur
I
babies
mean,
enjoying
he
retirement.
got nominated 0 times in a season where there were 4 nominees for a lot of the season. He won by a vote of 7-2. He won HOH 4 times. He was dethroned once, so we'll say 3 technically. And he won the power veto 0 times. And that is the great Derrick Levasseur. Derrick comes in at number 3.
Derek
on
at
this
number
list.
3.
Brent, tell us why Derrick
Not
Levasseur
much
is
of a
the
blind side.
greatest player of all time.
In real time.
Brent had Derek at
Wow,
number
you know,
1.
it didn't really hit me that I put him at number 1 until now, but I thought long and hard about this. I just
I
couldn't.
wonder if he would stand by that.
I-
Did he even
here's
stand
the
by it by the end of this podcast?
I was
I think he did.
as impressed as I was watching Andy play his
I guess,
game.
you know,
Thank
to
you,
be
Dippin'
fair,
Dots.
The effortlessness with which he
Again,
got to the end and won.
This was like
I
a year
was
after
then
Derek did
even
his
more
thing. So.
impressed the next season when Derek came and did it even better. He just was the leader of an alliance that no one ever considered voting against. It wasn't even an option. It's like what I said with Maggie. It was just, can
So in
you
case
move
you
hearts
weren't
and
paying
minds?
attention, Brent
Derek
has
moved
Derek
the
at number
entire
1,
house.
Andy at number
They
2.
all respected Derek, and somehow he wasn't a threat to their game. Nobody even considered voting him out. In fact, the thing that gets Brian Lynch pissed off on Twitter is the stuff that I love about Derek, which is the fact that Derek would effectively threaten people. Like, you're going to take money out of my baby's mouth if you backstab me. And they're like, oh, no, Derek, I don't want to do that, And he got them to do things that were not in their best interest. It's amazing to me that you could get to the final 6 or the final 5 and no one even considers getting rid of Derek, even though he's obviously the biggest threat to win the game. And Frankie, someone who knows Big Brother.
It's just crazy that we
I would love to
just
ask
watched
Frankie,
Casey
where were you going? What were
decide
you going to do with Derek? Because
she
you obviously
wanted to
didn't
be
want to
the
get
Cody.
rid of him at 5 when you were originally
pull
head of
out the
household
win.
before the reset. So what were you planning on taking him to the end? Did you think you could beat him? I guess I give that credit
her
to
lifelong
Derek.
dream that she
Yes,
wanted to fulfill
he was never in
having a Derek
adversity,
and
but I
Cody
give him
situation.
credit for that he managed to put himself in such a big alliance, an onion alliance, if you will, with so many layers around the outside where he was protected by all of these other people who might have been coming at him. The only person in the house, really, who was on to Derek's game was Donnie. Donnie couldn't do anything about it. And I love the fact that, people would dump on Derek because, he got help from the America's Team Player thing, that these 3 people had to work together. Donnie was effectively working against Derek by week 4. Like, he didn't trust Derek. He knew he was up to something. Donnie wasn't a part of Derek's alliance.
Donnie was
so
Derek's
I don't understand
kryptonite.
why people, they knocked Derek down a few pegs for the Team America thing, but yet I don't think Derek really benefited too much from that. In fact, I think it might have hurt him because he had to keep Donnie in the house a little bit longer than maybe he should have. I think Derek could have gotten caught with his pants down, so to speak, if by keeping Donnie in the house as long as he did. So I think Derek just played an immaculate game. I love the fact that he never faced any adversity because he didn't cause
Derrick's
any
methods
adversity.
for
People liked voting for him at the end, and he
keeping
got somebody to make a
his ducks in a row
$500,000
were a
mistake at
lot
the end. He
less
didn't even need to win the final HOH, which is
evil
boggling to me.
or a lot less cruel than
And
Paul's
you know,
were.
obviously, if you guys know, I placed Andy at 2 and Derrick at 1.
That
Obviously, I placed Will and
That's
Dan
fair.
somewhere in 3 and 4. And the reason is because the two people at the top,
It was, you always knew he
never
was playing the
faced any
game. He wasn't
adversity, and they
hurting
never
anybody's
caused any
feelings along the
adversity.
way.
I
And
love the fact
Well,
that they
obviously
were
his
able
jury
to play
management was
effectively perfect
well,
games.
not nobody.
There's
And I feel
definitely
like
one
if you made
commenter,
mistakes
commentator
once before,
who disagreed
as
with you, Matt.
Dan did in Big Brother, and his 2 times
Who maybe
playing,
was on
Will
RGB at the
did
time.
in his 2 times playing, you're likely
Yes.
to make them again. I have yet to see any evidence that Derrick Levasseur or Andy Herren have made any mistakes in their
Derrick
game.
upset
And
Jocasta.
thus, I'm inclined
Paul
to give
upset
them
everybody.
the benefit of the doubt at this point.
Here's the thing.
That's it.
Here's the thing about that
Except
though.
Raven and
So, Dan and Will
Whoever
came
else.
back and they played a second time, and they went into those seasons having the moniker of one of the greatest people to ever play the game. And I think that alone is the adversity that I want to see Derrick have to face,
If Tyler
because I think
wins,
that's
where
one
does
of
he rank?
the most difficult things to
Not top
overcome in Big Brother.
If Tyler wins
At
that
the top
jury
of that,
vote
the fact
and he
that
still makes all the decisions he made,
always went his way.
he's
And
probably
Will kinda helped with that, but I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say that he won because he won,
7.
because he didn't. He would have won anyway.
Yeah,
but
6
I
would have been
wanted to
my
see what happens
ceiling.
if Donnie wins in HOH, the same way that maybe Frank wins in HOH in Big Brother 14. How does Derrick handle that? And I
But if
think
he won the way I wanted him to win,
I think he probably
I was thinking
survived,
like
but I'm not sure.
top
I
3,
don't
4.
have that evidence. I know Dan can survive. I know Will can
Yeah, like
survive.
does he win
At least for the
still
most part.
throwing the final 4 veto? I guess.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, where they've played once and
Like if he
haven't
takes
seen
his win into his hands,
and that's definitely
cuts
a good thing, but,
Casey, takes
I think
Angela,
if they
so
did
on and
again,
so
they
forth,
would face
then
adversity no matter
we're
what they
talking
did.
top tier
So,
for sure.
you know, it's basically about giving me more information. You know, if Derrick goes back, can he avoid the target of he's now been outed as an undercover police officer? He's now regarded as one of the best players to ever win. Can he still do it? Can he still make it to the end with those things being held against him in the same way that Dan and Will were able to? That would show me an adaptability that would definitely put him at the very least right with them as far as rankings.
Can I say something real? I just want to say something really quick while I'm thinking about it. You know, when you remember when Nicole came back in the house and it was, I think, Donnie and Cody at the end, and I think Cody ended up winning. And if it would have been, I think we were all rooting for Donnie at that point because we wanted to see a change up in the house. Even if Donnie wins HOH, I don't see a pair that he could nominate at that point that would get rid of Derrick. I don't see any 2 people in the house that he could put onto the block.
That's actually not that uncommon. We saw Paul do it. We saw Tyler do it. There were points where Vanessa had it. Dan,
He
Will.
probably still survives, but you never know, right? Because if he's in that position where he's put into danger, he's nominated for the first time, people may start looking at him differently. And that happens a lot in Big Brother. And maybe he doesn't handle the pressure very well because I don't know. I saw Derrick handle pressure not super well. The time where Zach kind of outs his game to Victoria, he definitely was able to diffuse it, but he was really under pressure there, and he kind of got a little too aggressive. He almost blew his cover. So I want to see what happens if Derrick's put into that pressure situation. Like I said, I do think he still survives it, but I want to see it before I say definitively he's up there with Dan and Will.
Yeah, Taran just touched on the only dividing line that I had, and again, we're drawing these things with like the fine-tooth comb at this point. I mean, this really is tough. These guys are all so good. We're picking at the tiniest nits here when we're talking about disseminating these games and problems with these games. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, these guys are all probably infinitely better at this game than we could ever be. I mean, so it's really picking nits. For me, the only thing that separates the Derrick from the people I have above him is what Taran just talked about. You know, in that moment when you see him kind of lose his cool a little bit at Zach, you know, like you said, Brent, I love that he is willing to stoop to those levels. The you're taking food out of my kid's mouth, the really kind of putting the screws to people. I wonder if a Dan or a Will would have found a more agreeable path. I wonder if he didn't not need to go there at that point. You see Jocasta adamantly not want to give him her vote at the end because of the way she feels like he was kind of
I
sleazy
don't know if
or
it's good or bad, but I
manipulative
feel
or
like I would
two-faced.
probably end up
And
taking
I just
the game
wonder
there.
if a
if I
player
played.
like Will, with all his charisma,
What do you mean?
with all his
Like pulling out that kind of
natural, just
personal, like
warm,
you're
personality.
taking
I
food
just
from my kid's
wonder if
mouth.
someone like that would lose
I don't
that
know what the
vote. You
version
know
of
what I
it
mean? I just feel
for me
like
would
he
be,
was on
but
the path
I can just
to
imagine, like,
resistance, whereas Derrick, I think, kind of just put his head down and
I don't know.
slogged through the mud a bit.
I don't know. If
I feel like I
feel
might
like
end up
you know,
there at some point.
I feel like that Derrick played the Zach.
I probably,
out of his game.
I feel like if I
Bob,
go there, that's a losing battle for me. Nobody's gonna feel more sympathetic to me than to almost anyone sitting next to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean,
self-absorbed.
it would be hard to, like, relate that back to our real lives and be like, oh, like you're,
I'm serious.
especially, next to a somebody who actually needs the money. I don't know, whatever. But
the dad to him at that point basically put his foot down and said,
I don't know.
"You better
feel like I'd go deep.
fuck up, or I'm gonna fuck you up." That's what he did, and he scared
Make
the
it personal.
shit out of him.
Right,
Okay. Okay. I don't know that another tack would have worked better with Zach.
I think with Zach, you're probably right. The thing I find fault with is
Yeah,
that
shades of Brad.
Derrick comes off as the bad guy throughout most of that big confrontation with everybody in the HOH room until he gets lucky and Zach kind of takes it upon himself to take responsibility and kind of avert the target. And that was a bit lucky. And I do think that had Zach not done that, people would have come away from that big confrontation thinking, what was up with Derrick there? Like, that was kind of weird. And another thing somebody pointed out in the chat, which I think is a great point, without the reset and Victoria being saved by the reset, I think he has a tougher road to the finals with Frankie there. Frankie's good at competitions, and I don't think Frankie takes Derrick to the end. I don't think Frankie does it. But again, I think Derrick's an elite player. I think there's definitely a chance Derrick talks him into it. But I didn't get to see it,
Yeah, I think it's just we need to see him do it again, and I think that we're back to the adversity thing. I think that if Derrick is going to play, and you said earlier, Brent, that he didn't get himself into any trouble when he played his one game. That's true, but if he's going to play 100 times, he's going to get in trouble at some point.
Exactly,
Eventually, he's going to get into that, and we don't know how he's going to react to it. And in terms of charisma as well, I think that Dan and Will are ahead of Derrick in that sense. I really do. I think that, especially, and we can get into those guys a little bit later, but I think that he's not as charismatic as those guys are. I think with him, it's more so just socially, he's just so good because, and this time I could use this as an example, his career being an undercover cop. I think that's huge. But I just think the charisma thing is just not there. But I've met Derrick in person, very nice dude, and I can understand why he is so good at the game and how great he is. But
I did see people talking about
Dr. Will and Dan are better, and until we see Derrick do it again,
if Big Brother 16 happened now this year, or I guess maybe after a jury sees Paul lose,
I do feel like that the three of you are falling.
Does Derrick still win? Or do jury members feel more justified in voting differently now?
It's definitely
I
an
genuinely think
interesting
there's
question.
a very good chance that Derrick is better than Will, and I'm probably going to get heat for that. But I have Derrick in a tier on his own because it's kind of a temporary tier. I'm not sure where he goes yet because I want to see him play again, and I think if he does, there's a very good chance.
He would play again.
I think there's a very good chance that he goes to the top tier, and he probably surpasses Will for me.
For me, like I said, the only thing is that I think Derrick, like you said, yeah, he is. I mean, he's Leo DiCaprio from The Departed.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see Derrick back on the show.
Something that comes with that is taking yourself.
I just don't think he's going to do it.
I think Derrick just. If there's gonna
I think he knows that in terms of legacy,
it would just go down.
There's just way too much opportunity to fall. And in terms of like opportunity, he's doing TV shows. Like, he doesn't need Big Brother anymore.
The way that Derrick is able to convince people to do things in a way where it seems like their idea, I think is only outmatched by Dan's ability to do it, which I think is a very essential part of being such a top tier player.
It's fine. I want to,
you're able to get things done
see some more players
in a way that doesn't make you seem like the doer.
See him try it again.
Derrick is definitely very good at that. He was good at that all the way to week 2 when Zach was on the block, and he was convincing people that it was in their best interest to keep Zach. and it was their idea that they thought so. So I think
I love the fact that it's not only puts it in their head that it's their idea, but he gets them to do things that are against their own best interests.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't think that keeping Zach was in many people's best interest except for Derrick and his squad, but yet he got everybody to do it.
It was crazy to watch. I don't know if the clips exist, but like
he was going around convincing people we got to get rid of
watching
Zach.
him go
And then
around
Derrick
was
would come
just
in right
crazy.
behind him, and then Derrick would leave, and they would all be saying, I think it's best for us that we keep Zach. And it was like, what is this guy doing?
Right.
Bomb squad, bro. Okay, Derrick, number 3, and I'm sure before it's all said and done, we will see him play.
Pow
again,
Pow
and
might be
we
one
will
of the
be able to hopefully
most forgettable
definitively
Big Brother players
decide
of the past few
who
years.
is the best, Derrick, Dan, or Dr. Will. But for now, we've
All
got
right.
Derrick.
If Andy and Dr.
Moving
Andy
on.
and Derrick play in a season, who's out first?
I say Derrick.
in a
I
second.
also say Derrick.
I
see
missed the
it.
question.
Andy or Derrick,
but
who's
if
out
Andy-
first?
If Andy and Derrick play in a season together, which one of them is out first?
With the
Assuming they
reputations,
both
with
go
the
to the final.
reputations
I'd say
they
Derrick.
have,
Yeah, say
I
All
put my-
Stars is next summer. And
I put my money on Andy with the reputations they have. I think Derrick is going to have a harder time, and I think Andy is going to be underrated by the
Put your
people
money
there,
on
so.
Andy doing well.
Derrick's
Yes.
a bounty at this point for returning players.
Yeah.
People want to be able to come
Agreed.
back and say they got Derrick. I don't know that people feel that way with Andy, but they should.
And the thing too with
should.
Andy as well is I think Andy, I mean, for the most part, I mean, yeah, we saw, I don't know if you people listening to this saw that blog post that Andy wrote of all the people that have blocked him on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, people
Salamence, I
really
gave
do
my,
like Andy that are,
Dan
in the
versus Will
Big
take.
Brother
We dropped it in the
alumni, at
chat.
least as far as I know. Well, actually, maybe not. No, not everybody. But, there
Team,
are Andy's. Now that I'm thinking, okay,
Team
there are
Dan
some
for
people
the
that
past
don't like Andy. But, like,
2
from my
years.
perspective,
As far as
I
I've
Andy is great. And I think that a
been a
lot
Big
of
Brother fan.
people... I don't think they would be.
I will say my opinion
even
has
if they don't really-
deepened
they
over
might
the
not
years.
Like Andy, they would still see Andy and be like, "Oh well, he's just
in
a rat
like
floater. We'll get rid
in
of
this
him later."
podcast, I'm
Whereas
like
Derrick. It's like, whoa, this guy's like Dr.
a
Will
little bit on the
Dan.
fence.
Let's get rid of him right away. I want his blood on these hands, yo.
That's
But
the thing. Yeah. even
after
people
going back and
like
watching
Andy,
Big Brother
they
2,
would overlook Andy because they
revisiting,
not in a way
All
like,
Stars
oh,
a few more times, revisiting
it's
Dan's
like
seasons, like the
wrestling
gap
match,
between them has
the guy
widened, in my
comes out and
opinion.
it's your hometown. You know what I mean? It's just like
I mean,
it's cheap heat is what they call it in wrestling.
I do
feel
think
bad we
he
can't
could
get
get
any, like,
unlucky and get put in with a cast.
too
where it's
exciting
just a
1
bunch of people
a.m.
that don't like him, and he's kind of like
Twitch
in a
stream
cast
of you and I
situation
fighting
where
over this,
he's
but
probably not going to be able to do
Well,
it
you,
right.
if you
On
want,
their
if you
side.
want Dan versus Will arguments, we're about to watch
Well, I mean, I don't know,
one
it
of
depends.
the
Yeah,
classic ones.
when-
And as I
when
mentioned,
that all
the Dom and
gets going,
Colin
it's
podcast was
people
another
and
really
Derrick's
great
there. I think Derrick's
Dan
in a good
versus Will
spot.
argument.
And if Andy's there as well, I think Andy's in a bad spot. But I think if it's otherwise, if it's pretty evenly dispersed, then I think that our guesses are on point. Brent, what do you think about that? Do you think Derrick or Andy would be out first?
Daquan. Wow, sometimes I forget Jordan lived your blood on these hands.
And maybe I think people would like to keep him as a target. Maybe initially, I think Andy. I think nobody.
Why are
trusts
we
him.
dragging
I
this
feel
out
like,
at
at least with Derrick.
2:45
he was loyal to the people he
into
was
the
loyal
podcast?
to for the longest time. He never betrayed anybody who was part of his core group until he had to.
Well, he
Effectively.
convinced
No one
some
had
people
anywhere
that
to
they were
be.
part of the core
It's
group
true.
and they weren't.
Fair, yeah.
Like,
I think Andy is just people. It's very easy to get on that whole rat floater thing. Like, let's get this guy out of the house. Nobody trusts him, So I think I don't know. I feel like Andy would probably be the first one out, but I can see where you guys are coming from with Derrick and the whole let's get a scout.
Existential
Bro,
turtle.
we got
I don't like Dan
daughters.
versus
I
Will
know that I'm in
debates
your inner circle.
because I know Dan is better, but I love Will so much that I hate hearing anything negative about him. That's so fair.
In Derrick's game was the.
I hate having to be the one that argues against Will because I also love, like, Will is what made me fall in love with the show. Like, Will is so connected to my, like, childhood identity. Like, it's inseparable, and I can't extricate, like, how much I loved watching him with, like just the show in general. So, like, being known as the anti-Will guy is pretty painful, but what are you
was
going
a
to do?
little easier to manage. But I think that was a minor flaw in the way he handled
Don't
that.
think of it as
scene.
anti-Will.
I
Just
wanted-
think of it as extremely pro-Dan.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it, guys. This is it.
But, like, I
The
constantly
final
have
two.
to trash talk.
Dr. Will and Dan Giesling.
What's it
Who
gonna
is
be?
number 1 and who is number 2?
Or who's number 3 and 4?
I definitely don't remember who.
Well, according to Brent, 3 and 4.
Was
Skewing the rankings.
Yes.
the results
That's
Okay.
Brent's role.
Oh, I definitely remember
There we
this.
go. And can I get a little bit of a drum roll, please?
Oh,
with this
sure.
crew,
There we go. Okay.
I feel like Will
Very
won.
good.
First, that is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
Alex.
I've drummed
I'm
since
wrong.
6th grade, so
Ah.
this is a niche for me.
Okay, here we go. In a tie for first place, it's
Oh,
Dr.
come
Will
on.
and Dan. They're
We break the
tied,
tie.
ladies and
We break the
gentlemen.
tie.
That's why, yeah.
Sandbagging the rankings. There's still
Well,
a
it's because of
tie?
Brent voting for
Still
1 and
a
2 not
tie.
being.
It's still
Well,
Dan or
a
Will.
tie. And here's what
Brent
happened.
is Dan over
So,
Will.
Dr. Will
I was
and Dan,
Dan over
are at the
Will.
top of these rankings.
Jordan
Their
and Alex are both Will
consensus
over
rank,
Dan,
when
Yeah,
you add
regardless
them
of where they were
together,
placed.
So Dr. Will got an aggregate score of 2.0, and Dan Giesling
I feel
got
like
an
we're hitting
aggregate score
the
of
theme
2.0.
of how
Alex
these rankings have
Kidwell
been going down yet
had
again.
Dr. Will Kirby at number 1.
On what
He had
everybody's
Dan
basing it
Giesling
on.
at
Mhm.
number 2. Brent Walgamont had Dan Giesling at number 3. He had Dr. Will at number 4.
Imagine thinking Dr.
Jordan
Will was
Parhar,
the
yours
4th best
truly,
Big
I
Brother
had
winner.
Dr. Will Kirby at number 1, and I had Dan Giesling at number 2. Taran Armstrong had Dan Giesling at number 1, and Will Kirby at number 2.
Number
So-
1 with a bullet, baby. Punch
So
it
there
in.
we go. Punch it in. Let's go. Okay.
You sure you were
So here we go.
so?
This is interesting. So we've
You
got
sure it was that
you know,
close to
we've
you?
got the people on the left side of the screen, at least from my perspective.
Well,
I don't know
you gotta
if
have fun with
it's
it.
different on everyone else's screen, but it's me and Alex versus Brent and Taran. So let's get this ball rolling. Taran, why is Dan Giesling the greatest player?
Oh boy, get ready.
So many reasons, Jordan. I will say first of all, I
This
think
takes a half an hour.
Dan and Will, they are on a tier, which means I think it could probably go either way. There's enough margin of error to say I'm not exactly sure. I have a mountain of evidence for why I think Dan is probably better, but it would not surprise me is if someday magically they were able to play 100 games and Dan was and Will was slightly better. It wouldn't surprise me, but my prediction is I think Dan's better. So to qualify that, I guess I'd start by pointing out the flaws I see in Will's game. First of all, Will's season 2 game, he was not in control of anything for the first half of the game. He was on the outs. He was barely even playing the game. He was just kind of, being Dr. Will, having fasts and pretending that he was really kind of doing anything. What he was doing the most was projecting weakness, which is one of his strong suits. I think Dan does it better in season 10, though. Then he loses all of his allies. He's unable to do anything about that. He doesn't want it to happen, unlike Dan, who willingly cuts his allies in the beginning of his seasons in order to project his air of weakness. Then when we get to the second half of Will's season 2 game, it mostly revolves around the fact that Nicole and Hardy are able to win HOH back to back to back to back. And his end game there was not very solid. So in the final 4 HOH, he sets himself up where he needs Monica to win, because then he's the sole vote to evict Hardy, and he goes into the final 3 where both people probably take him, and he probably wins against Monica, but I'm not sure because I wasn't like a feedster at the time.
After reviewing the season, I'm pretty sure Monica
But
beats Will.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because it's Dr. Will. But anyway, if Nicole wins that final 4, someone's saying Monica wins, so I'll take your word for it, and that's not a good situation for him. So he's hoping that Monica wins final 4 HOH and Nicole wins final 3 HOH, which is kind of a unique scenario. Nicole
Plus,
was winning so many HOHs.
Monica's
throughout
coming
the
right
entire
off of
season.
that
Kind of a leap
that
to say,
news.
well, she's not going to win the final 4.
9/11.
9/11
If she
news.
wins the final 4 HOH, her
Can't
and Hardy
imagine
go
that.
to the
Yeah,
final 3
no
together,
way they give
and
it
they're
to
taking each
Will
other.
over
He needs to
Monica
win that
after
final
9/11
3
happened.
HOH, which he's not capable of doing, frankly, or at least he hasn't shown to be capable of doing it. So that's where I see him failing in season 2. And then in season 7, again, his end game, very weak in season 7, even weaker, I think, than season 2, where he goes to the final 4 with Janelle and Erica, 2 people who are very good at the competitions. He knows he's not particularly good. And the way that him and Boogie approach the scenario where Janelle and Erica he approaches Janelle and Erica separately with Boogie and says to both of them, "We want to keep you, but Erica's the one that wants you out. So we need to make sure Erica doesn't win." And then he goes to Erica and he says, "Me and Boogie want to keep you, but Janelle's the one that wants you out. We need to make sure Janelle doesn't win." The way that that's set up is that the whole point of setting it up is in the instance that one of them wins the power veto. When one of them wins the power veto, they then think the other one, the one that didn't win, thinks, "Oh man, Janelle just won the power veto. They told me that she wants me out. I have no other option but to go to her and expose everything that they've been telling me." It's a situation that should have been foreseen because it's the only way it plays out. And Dr. Will fails to lock down Janelle and he fails to lock down Erica. Erica, I mean, he got outplayed by Erica. Erica managed to out-persuade him for Janelle's loyalty when it wasn't even in Janelle's best interest to get rid of Dr. Will at the time. She had a better shot of beating Dr. Will in the final 3 HOH than she did Erica, and she wasn't getting to the final 2 without winning that HOH. So he got a little overconfident in that situation, and I think it's a failing in both of his games that at the end he really needs specific scenarios to play out because he's not able to convince people in the way that Dan is to get him all the way to the end. And so that's where I see flaws in Will's game, and I've been talking for a long time, so I'll let somebody else
Jeez, you really hate Dr. Will.
take in for now.
I had a ton more,
and
but I was
as
just like,
this
I
is
can't
going
keep
on,
talking.
As this debate is going on, I posted a poll on Twitter.
This is the
so if you wanna go
tiebreaker.
to my Twitter, I'm at Jordan Parhar, and we're gonna decide. We're gonna let you guys decide this live. So who
Audience.
is the best Big Brother winner, Dr. Will or Dan Giesling? And I'll decide, I guess, when it ends, depending on how long this thing goes. But Alex, let's throw it to you. Why is Dr. Will better than Dan?
Okay, so there's been a few times in this podcast where I've kind of, used the metaphor of kind of the deck of cards in terms of like,
I'm waiting for this to get heated.
of the moves you can make in the Big Brother game, like broing down. These are all different cards you can play, and you have a different size deck based on what you're bringing to the game inherently. Victoria's sitting there holding the old maid. Basically, it's a situation where I think both of these guys have every card there is in the deck. Dan has one that he doesn't have that Will has, and that's the Master of Seduction. I think Will is capable of winning women in a way that Dan isn't, and I think other than that, they're both perfect. So to me, that's the only line that separates them. I really do put stock in the rumors that Will never wanted to win season 7, that he was there solely to get Boogie the win. And that's why I think at Final 4, like Janelle is basically putting him in a position where either have sex with her or it's over. I mean, if he doesn't seal the deal at Final 4, he's not going to be able to continue that relationship, and he doesn't want to. Like, I wonder if he might have a girl back home and this was all gameplay. But for better or worse, Dan just doesn't want to like go the distance with Janelle for his game. And I think he realizes that Boogie already has the game pretty well locked up at that point, and he doesn't need to. I think he was perfectly happy going out 4th, knowing that he was securing Boogie almost a certain position of victory, because I really believe that was his goal from the beginning. And if you look at it through that lens, his game looks really good all of a sudden, I think. And, granted, you don't have to accept that because, no one's ever really come out and said this is the case. But yeah, like Tyler said, he did have a girl back home. I mean, he is able to just become another person, where I think Dan is able to like put on a mask. I think Will is able to put on the full bodysuit. That's the difference to me.
I have a couple of problems with that scenario, though. First is if Will is willing to give up the game, then he's not the best player to ever play because he's not going to win all the time. Second,
he's there to win. You know what I mean? That's me. Like, I'm only betting on him. He's there to
part
win
of
the
a
season.
player's capability. If they're not motivated, then they're not going to win all the time. Second, he ensures Boogie's victory if he's in the final 3 a lot more securely than he does if he goes out at final 4. So I'm not sure
I'd
I'd
his
buy
girlfriend and do it.
He doesn't have to cheat on his girlfriend. Like I said, the way that he approached the situation was flawed in the first place. If he goes to Janelle and says, Boogie and Erica want you out, I want to keep you because you're good for my game, and Boogie goes to Erica and says, Will and Janelle want you out, but I want to keep you because you're good for my game, then they both think that they at least have one ally. They don't have the ammunition to go to each other and say they're playing us both, because they're in their minds, it's the couples versus each other. and they screwed that up by going to them as a pair, and that's why it failed.
Brent, hop in. I want to hear from Brent Walgamot. Brent, hop in on this conversation.
Well, as far as what Alex said, I can only say fan fiction. I'm like a storyteller. That's what I do. Okay, so I don't. What is that coming from? You just see some
Get the
rumor
full
you
sound
heard on
job.
the internet?
I know you
What is
want the
that?
full fan
I
fiction
think that's total
there.
hogwash. It's like I don't even know. What that means.
In defense of Alex, I've heard the same thing. So anyway,
Well, fabulous. You're apparently trolling the same sites. I agree with Taran that if the point is that he's not there to win the game, then he's obviously not the best player of all time. Like, he doesn't even care about that. It's just, I don't know. I don't know that I can look at his game through that sort of lens. I think all of you are wrong that neither one of these players is the best player ever. But considering we're tied,
Okay.
I'll go with it and say Dan is better than Will. I think because Will just has so many holes in his game that I don't think that Dan does. And I think that if you're looking at the evidence from season 2 and season 7, you can see the holes more glaringly in Will's game than you can Dan. I will say this, that I do agree with Alex that Will has a card that Dan does not have to play, which is the charmer, the seductress, the sex god, so to speak, that women can fall for him. But I don't know that Dan doesn't get it done the same way, just by being the little brother, like he was with Keisha, and the little son, like he was with Rennie in Big Brother 10. I feel like he can play. He has a card to play too that Will doesn't have. So I think that's a point in Dan's favor. I don't know. I think both of you said so much about this that I think it's probably apropos that it's a tie at this point. But I do have to say I'd go to Rocks over Dan being better than Will.
I think Alex and I would also go to Rocks.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the thing with Dr. Will too is that he accomplished his goal both times. He wanted. I mean, if this thing is true, that
Such a dumb argument.
Game, then he's not a good player.
No, but he did. I mean, he wanted to.
I love
and it's
current
been-
Taran and past
If he's
Taran.
coming
both
to the
getting
game,
mad
if
at
he's
that.
coming to our generic season single, unencumbered, and there to win, I'm putting my money on him over Dan 100 times out of 100.
But he's not always coming to this. 1 out of 2 times he played, he wasn't
Well, then
doing
that's
that.
I feel like
Then
current
that's my
Taran wants to
caveat
start yelling at
for this one.
past
here's my
George and
attitude.
past Alex.
Let's throw out the fan fiction thing, okay, about him not wanting Boogie to win. Let's just get rid of that. Let's look at it as if he's just trying 100% to win Big Brother All Stars. He's going into a season with all All Stars, all people that have played the game before. And as somebody who has played this game before, going in on a second time, I know that and I haven't done it yet, but I'm sure you go in with a huge advantage. You know way more than you did the first time. You're not going to fall for the same stupid things.
That's back when he
Yet,
wanted to.
He convinced all of season 6, all of these supposed amazing players. He manipulated all of them. Daniel Reyes, one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, he convinced he made Diana Comis, all these people look like they sucked. I mean, he was unbelievable, and he's the only winner on that cast. Yet, for some reason, nobody wants to go after him. What is going on here? That is remarkable. It's amazing that he managed to pull that off. Dr. Will is insane, unbelievable, unparalleled. Yeah, Dan Giesling is amazing. Dan's amazing. I love Dan. He played a great game, but
So much
unfortunately,
passion.
what he did, Dan's funeral, convincing Danielle to use the veto on him and put Shane up on the block. All these sorts of things. That would not have worked on a full-out All-Star season. I'm sorry. It would not have.
Okay, so first of all, I don't fully accept the premise to begin with, right? Where you're saying it wouldn't have worked. We didn't see if it would have worked or not. You can't say that these All-Stars were necessarily better players because we saw them play on other seasons and they did pretty poorly, most of them. But if I do accept your premise, you're saying that these moves, they may not have worked on a stronger cast, but a stronger cast would have voted for Dan to win. A cast of returning players would not have held it against Dan that he was a returning player and that he was a returning winner in the same way that the newbies did. And that's pretty much the determining factor which caused him to lose the game in the first place. Dan is not a Russell Hantz. He is not this person that's this like super, everyone hates him. He's never going to win a jury vote. He's the only person to have ever won unanimously. The entire concept of the Mist is that he's so likable that every time he enters a room, you're like, oh man, Dan, you're just such a great guy. He lost because he was a returning player, and they talked about that in the house prior to the ending of the season. They talked about how they would never vote for a person that was a coach, and especially not a person that was a returning winner. And if he had an all-star cast, that wouldn't have been a factor in the same way that it was with a newbie cast. And so I think it balances out in the end, where maybe the all-stars are better players, but at least they're going to vote for Will to win. And Will doesn't make it to the end against these people. It's not like he beat them. He got beat by Erica. So, you know.
But Dan
did not have a 1 week immunity pass either. First of all, he had a 1 week immunity pass in which afterward he was absolutely eligible for eviction.
Compliments on
because
your
Danielle was up on the block. Even if you want to say there's some ambiguity, because maybe they don't want to waste a week on Danielle just to get Dan out when they're not sure that he's going to come into the game. They were pretty sure he was going to come into the game.
Yeah, their keyholes were on the wall. They knew they were coming into the game at some point.
And they also knew that voting out Danielle would get rid of Dan. That was confirmed to them. Second of all, even if you say, okay, there was some ambiguity.
We need
it's
to
only
find some
2
more
weeks
people to show.
Because
Big
2 of
Brother
those
14
evictions are
clips, or
Jody
just Dan
and
Peasley clips too, in general.
Willie, who's expelled.
After,
there's only 2 votes where
joy
he's
that it was
technically
when we showed
immune. So, and then he enters the game with 12 people left, which is the same amount of people I'd argue as Big Brother 2, where Will starts with. So it's not like he magically went from 12 people to 8 people and he was immune for the whole time. It was he entered the game at 12 people. He was safe for 1 week, same as Ian, and the second week he was absolutely eligible for going home, and nobody decided to take up that offer.
Fair points. It's tough.
It's boggling to me that you could have gotten rid of Danielle and Dan. You could have gotten them out of the game, gone forever, but instead the house said, no, let's get rid of what was her name?
JoJo.
JoJo.
Yeah.
Guys, JoJo's a bigger threat.
It's more important to get rid of JoJo over Dan and Danielle combined. And Danielle was no slouch. Like, the girl could win competitions. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Somebody help me.
I mean, for me personally, obviously, Dan's missed. That's the thing. If Twitter had been around back in the day, we'd have been talking about Will's missed, and I'd argue that it's much thicker.
It was coined in the house by Brittany because she said every time Dan comes into a room, he's just such a likable guy that you can't help it. It's like a mist that comes over you. You can't help but just like him. People say he had a bad social game. The concept of the mist was that people liked him so much.
I forgot that
I would argue that Will has every bit of those traits. Dan's mist would not work on me. I'm going to tell you this right now because I put zero stock in confidence. I put zero stock in religious beliefs. I put zero stock on you putting word on faith.
But see, like he's talking about like Will has all of the things that Dan has. Like he's talking about personality. I'm talking about like the specifics of the game.
Your word on some of those things, and Will is able to do the exact same thing with a bit of a wink and a smile. That to me, I mean, I'm just watching the 2 of them separately. I want to believe Will. I want to not believe Dan. That's what I feel when I watch them.
Yeah, but you're watching them on TV. It's different when you're with them in person.
Sure, but this is
I can
all we have
attest
to
to that,
work
having met Dan in person. He's an incredibly likable guy.
We don't all have the personal connections.
Hold on a sec. Wait, so hold on. Maybe Dan misted you so good. He's better than Dr. Will. Oh, look what
you came into contact with him, so you could have caught some mist in your eyes, right? Taran's actually
Dan proved himself to be plenty capable of manipulating people who weren't religious, who didn't put stock on those things. He was able to manipulate Jen. He was able to manipulate Ian. He did not rely on those things. He used them on people who they would work on, and he knew who they would work on. And every move that Dan makes in the game, it has multiple purposes, and it emits this air of.
Does nominating Chef Joe have multiple purposes?
Absolutely. Joe was one of the few people. Joe was somebody that Ian wanted to take to the end over Dan. And
Can't stump me.
It was actually really good that
He thought he was
get
just
him
gonna
out.
throw
If
in
he
like
takes
a
out
little
Shane there
joke
instead,
and
Dan might have a harder time getting to the end than he did. And like I said, like maybe it eliminates as some of Shane's bitterness, but you know, you can't say that too much because Shane was one of the most bitter people we've ever seen on any of these seasons of Big Brother. Him and Frank both. Shane was talking about how Dan robbed him of $500,000. Like he had such he was so self-absorbed in his own arrogance.
Yes.
There's nothing Dan could have done to make him not feel that way if Dan is the one responsible for his eviction. And if Dan takes him out in that double eviction, he's responsible just as much as he is at Final Four. So I actually think taking out Joe there was probably Dan's best move after Ian wins the veto.
Okay. That was good, guys. That was a good little debate, and it's interesting hearing both points. Again, we're nitpicking. Dan Giesling, Dr. Will. I think it to me, and I think to Alex and Taran, I think we can all agree, like hands down, the two best players that have ever played this game. And I think that it's hard. We're nitpicking here. I just think for me, I just am biased because Will did it first. Will's got the charisma. And I just think there's just some of that, the legend of
these
Dr.
are all
Will.
vagaries. You know, you don't have the details that I do. I've done the research. If you like science, you like me, and you like Dan Giesling.
No, but it's just that it's a subjective ranking, and I think for me, growing up seeing
Merciless.
Dr. Will and Big Brother All Stars being my favorite season, being a big fan of Chilltown as a kid, I think that's where it goes. I love Dan Giesling. I think that he's a phenomenal player, and I think that you put both those guys into any random season, they're gonna crush it pretty much every single time because they are so freaking good. They're both amazing. They're both excellent. I just am slightly team Dr. Will, but
I would say this because I didn't really say a lot in this discussion. Amazingly, I can't believe I kept my mouth shut. But because they were going at it so well, I just loved it. I think that the charisma that you talk about with Dr. Will, I think Dan has charisma in spades.
Oh, sure.
And I don't understand where this Will has all this charisma. Will has what I call sexual charisma. It's just
you guys really couldn't do this again right now.
He's a good guy,
especially
charisma.
just
Big Brother
you,
10,
Brent, and Melissa.
I
don't know where Melissa falls on this debate, but if Brent's on your
I
side,
think the jurors said it best. Where
debate.
Rennie was talking about, this vote was very easy.
Honestly, I feel like nowadays
how are
Brent
you?
would switch his
matter in the house.
rankings up just
Jerry
to
said, this person was kind to me.
contradict me.
Talking about Dan at that point. I think Dan just has a certain likability that just really translates well to the house. I think he was handicapped a little bit in Big Brother 14.
I'm curious how
I still
he
think he's that
feels
guy,
about his
but
rankings. I
I
texted
don't
him,
know.
but he
I
hasn't
feel like
answered
he had
me.
to change a little bit just to overcome the stigma that was Big Brother 10 Dan. But that's a handicap that some other people on the list haven't had to face.
No, I'm totally with you. I mean, again, we're splitting the finest of hairs, and I really believe that, me talking about my love of Will and his charisma is not a knock.
It was not my fault. Look,
if I think that 97% of Americans
look whose fault it is.
I believe 98% of Americans would respond to Will. That's really where it's at for me.
Okay. Yeah, and also for the record too,
Kellis.
Alex said that he would not fall for Dan's mist. I 100% admit
Kellhus.
that I would fall for Dan's mist, and that he could easily.
I probably would too.
Big Brother game.
All right.
He's phenomenal. He's amazing, but we have a definitive answer because the people have spoken. The Happy Hour Nation has spoken. And
They've spoken.
Have, the results are in from the poll. 177 votes were cast. 58% of people say Dan Giesling is the greatest player of all time. So there you have it. So Dan Giesling is the greatest Big Brother player of all time.
Did I just win a jury vote? Is that what just happened?
I love that the people in the chat are like garbage, boo, boo.
By 3-2 votes.
We didn't even pick it. That's on you.
Yeah, so there we go.
We did it.
So there we go. There
Dan Giesling, number one.
Dan Giesling is the greatest player of all time, according the greatest
Armstrong,
winner of all
number
time, according to this rank. So there you have a definitive ranking. Let's run through it. So from
Existential Turtle voted in that poll. Look at that.
Actually, I can just move over to this page that I have. We have a little Google document.
Started from the
set up.
bottom. Now we're here.
Started from
Jordan's
the bottom,
deleted
and now
Streets
we're
somewhere along the
Dan
way, so
Giesling. Okay, so Jordan
I'm not
Lloyd,
gonna
number
bother trying to
16,
look for
Rachel
it.
Riley at 15, Evil
Otherwise
Dick
I
at
would've.
14, Adam Big Baller Jasinski at 13, Ian Terry
You
at
voted for
12.
Dan,
We
but I
had
feel
Drew
sad
Daniel
about
at number 11, Steve Moses at number 10, Lisa Donahue at number 9, Mike Boogie Mallon at number 8, June Song at number 7, Hayden Moss at number 6, Maggie Ausburn
Kellis
at
is a
number
big Dan
5,
fan.
Andy Herren, the
Isn't that
rap
right?
floater, at number 4, Derrick Levasseur at number 3, Dr. Will Kirby at number 2, and Dan Giesling at
Isn't that
number
right?
1. So there
I
you
think
go,
Kellis voted
guys.
in that poll,
That's a
too.
wrap. We did it. 3 hours and 20 minutes later. We have finished this podcast. So to the 60 of you still watching this, you guys are the real MVP. all
I'm
of you,
on.
for sticking through it. Again, I mean,
Forgot
last
how
time we did the
titillating
season
that
ranks,
top 2
I didn't
debate
think many
was.
people would stick around. And
Thank
they
you,
did.
Amon.
And
I
this time we did
appreciate
the
it.
winners, and it's just as long, and people are still here.
I'm glad
So
you
to all of
glad
you,
you enjoyed it.
I thank you so much for being here and for listening today. I mean, we're just 4 guys with our subjective rankings. This isn't definitive by any means necessary, but this is the
Four
rankings
guys.
that the Happy Hour panel
2015
came up
LFC
with. This
motto.
is what we got. So
We're just
let
4
us know
guys
what you think about our ranks.
in
Tweet us
4
and let
different
us know.
houses,
I am at Jordan Parhar.
2 different
Brent is
colors.
At One Lucky Gay.
Might be the
Alex is
same
at
room.
Alex Kidwell, and Taran
Same
is
house.
at Armstrong Taran. So make sure you follow all those guys on
Wow,
Twitter.
didn't think it
and
would
leave
ever
some
end.
comments on robbinswebsite.com because we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you guys have to say, good or bad. I'm sure there's a lot of it.
I want to see huge write-ups on why Will is better than Dan, and I want to see people arguing with them, and I want to see debates
Hey,
about
Tyler could have
Ian
made it
versus
into these
Steve.
debates.
I want to see it all. Come
Just
on.
had to be
Yeah,
nice.
bring it all. We want to see all this stuff. We talked about a lot of cool stuff today, so please bring that stuff to the podcast. And also, please support the podcast if you like this. We'll probably be doing more of these. We did, we did a season ranks a month ago. We'll probably in December, we'll probably have something else for you. I was thinking probably the best players to never win. I think that would be a good rank we could do. So we'll see how that one
What did you
goes.
say?
First boots would be a fun one too. I think.
Best first boots. I think that would be a good one.
It's gonna be a Brian Hart show. Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We never did best first
Maybe
boots.
that wouldn't be a 3-hour one. But
I feel like it's
but,
actually not that great of
but
an idea.
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
we're gonna
I
do
have
more.
that
You
ranked
can
in my
simply check
phone.
those out. If you
Do you?
like Survivor coverage
I
as
do.
well,
I have a lot of,
I'm doing some Survivor podcasts
these
over on robbinswebsite.com,
silly rankings in my
recapping
phone.
Survivor.
Yeah, we should do a
Cambodian
Survivor podcast sometime.
Yeah, we all. Yeah,
First, second,
everyone
third,
does here.
fourth,
so why
and
don't
fifth
three of you guys,
placers
we
all
can do-
ranked,
we can do one of these one
as
time
well
talking
as
Survivor.
first
So we'll do that.
evicted by
We can
a
do that,
house vote,
I don't know.
as well as
Pretty soon. Let's do it. Yeah, go
Yeah,
soon.
yeah.
We'll set it up. But yeah,
Something
check that
else.
out. Make sure you check out everything on robbinswebsite.com. Check out all the great work by Rob Sestardino. If you like this podcast, surely you will like what he does because he's infinitely better than I am.
Jordan.
Now we need a hashtag, guys, for this episode. So
if you guys never knew Jordan Parr
Taran wins.
Hashtag Taran wins.
as the reality TV wrap-ups for Happy Hour
ooh,
host.
Hashtag
Missed
Taran
out.
wins. There's no Alex.
Good
Doesn't sound like
times.
old man Jerry today. So we can't
That's
go with
right.
that.
No,
Taran
last
Smith,
time we
I love
talked,
it.
there was a
Taran
couple
Smith.
times I
Love
wanted
Jordan.
to say something. I'm like, I can't talk over these guys. So I made sure today. No, I'm getting in there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good for you. So let's see.
And Alex, these
hashtag.
days are a lot of fun.
Well, we had that imposter Rob come in and post spoilers for Survivor
I know, but I don't
Cambodia.
wanna
I don't know if
And
we're going to advertise that.
No,
And
let's not
major-
publicize that
No,
guy.
and major apologies to all of you in the chat if you saw any of that. I'm very sorry for that.
I was like a
did
ninja.
not
I
mean-
managed
What
to
about
avoid
hashtag who's missed is thicker?
hashtag who's missed is thicker.
That sounds kind of sexual, though.
That does kind of sound a little sexual.
Is this the problem?
Yeah. Hashtag Dan missed the podcast.
I like the who's missed this sticker. I like that. That's
Yeah.
We did not do that, did we?
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So hashtag who's missed is thicker.
Okay.
That will be the hashtag for the show. One other thing before we get out of here today,
Guess so.
just reminding you guys, raising money for Michelle's place before we go to Reality Rally next
I'll look
year.
up that
So if you're
hashtag on
interested
Twitter.
in a Skype call with me.
I'd be careful.
Those off. So I've got a tweet pinned at the top of my Twitter profile. And for each dollar you donate, you get a minute to talk to me. We can talk about anything. We can talk about this podcast. We can talk about why I'm an idiot. We can talk about anything you want.
Yeah, we got
Football,
a bunch of tweets from
whatever.
2015.
I've done several of these so far. They're a lot of fun. I really do enjoy those. So please check that out and support Michelle's Place. They raise money for families and people struggling through breast cancer, and it's a really good cause. So definitely check that out if you're interested, and we can chat and have a lot of fun. And hopefully some of you guys will do that, and we can chat. I'm really looking forward to talking to some more people. Okay, guys, so that is it. That
Only
is the
2
podcast.
tweets.
There was like
the
6.
Big Brother Happy Hour.
Sure you're not on like
the
the
definitive
top
rankings.
tweets. You gotta go to like
They're
latest.
up. They're set. They're locked in. Tweet us. Let us know what you thought about them.
There's a couple.
For Brett
7 or 8, I
Walgamon,
don't know.
Alex Kidwell, and Taran Armstrong, I'm Jordan Parhar. Hashtag who's missed is thicker. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.